The nightmare soldiers were not stupid. They naturally knew that Yun Chujio was trying to make them show mercy. Everyone hesitated for a moment, but they still moved the bonfire a little. They consoled themselves. After all, they had not burned this bad news bag to death after so many days. It should not be a big deal to move it a little. Hei Shinjio used the story to get close to the nightmare race soldiers while thinking of ways to escape. Now that AOG wasn't in the base, it was the best time to escape. There was no need to think about forcefully breaking in. Although she was quite abnormal, it was hard for her to fight against 4 hands with 2 fists. There was no way to escape. She had thought about giving these nightmare race soldiers some medicine when they were roasting meat, but it was useless even if they were drugged. There were still many nightmare race soldiers outside, and it was completely useless. This fellow thought about it for a long time, but there was only one way. That was to have Guai Chao summon the demon beasts. Since she was hiding inside the bastard's shell, she was not afraid of being attacked by the demon beasts. Moreover, these soldiers of the nightmare race would not allow the demon beasts to trample on their encampment. At that time, she could take advantage of the chaos to leave. As long as she was allowed to leave the encampment of the nightmare race, she would have the confidence to shake off these people. Right, that was what she was going to do. That night, Hei Shinjio made the Guai Chao emit a fragrance to seduce the demon beasts. Hei Shinjio was afraid that the demon beasts that came would be of no use, so she made the Guai Chao summon them with all her might. What Hei Shinjio did not expect was that the fragrance of the Guai Chao was not only useful to the demon beasts, but it also had a fatal attraction to the nightmare beasts. Before the demon beasts could be lured over, the nightmare clan's base was in chaos. The nightmare beasts that were originally guarding the encampment were rampaging around the encampment like crazy. They had only one destination, and that was Hei Shinjio, who was being roasted by the fire. The Yen clan's encampment was caught off guard by the sudden chaos. These nightmare beasts had been tamed for a long time and had always been very obedient. Why did they suddenly go crazy tonight? The Yen clan soldiers wanted to stop these rampaging nightmare beasts, but these nightmare beasts seemed to have gone crazy. As a result, the encampment of the Yen clan was in chaos. Hei Shinjio looked out through the cracks in the shell and was delighted. I didn't expect the fragrance of Go Weiba tail to have an effect on the nightmare beasts. This was truly a heaven-sent opportunity. If she didn't run now, when would she do it? The soldiers guarding the bonfire were all taming the nightmare beasts, so they didn't notice the suspended shell. Hei Shinjio took out a set of nightmare race soldiers' clothes from her storage ring. As for the source of the clothes, when they had ambushed the nightmare race's encampment previously, this fellow had handed over the nightmare race soldiers' corpses to Yuan 11, but the storage ring had been confiscated by this guy. After Hei Shinjio changed her clothes, she adjusted the level of her spiritual power to the first layer of the spiritual void tier, and swallowed another disguise pill. Then, she had Go Weiba stop releasing the fragrance, and sprinkled a box of incense powder on her body to cover the fragrance of the Guai Chao. Only then did she let the little bastard put away the big turtle shell, then jumped onto the ground and blended into the crowd. This bastard shouted hoarsely in the crowd, "Oh my God! This is bad. Something big has happened. The turtle shell is gone. Yun Chujio has escaped." The nightmare soldiers turned around and saw that the bonfire was empty. The big turtle shell had actually disappeared into thin air, causing even more chaos. Although the Guai Chao had stopped releasing the fragrance, the nightmare beasts had not regained their senses for a moment and were still ramming around mindlessly. Hei Shinjio blended into the crowd, her fragrance choking the surrounding nightmare race soldiers and causing them to sneeze non-stop. This fellow was quickly despised and the nightmare race soldiers kept their distance from her. Hei Shinjio had sneaked to the outermost side of the Nightmare Clan's base without anyone noticing. This fellow was in high spirits and was just about to charge out when he heard a loud sneeze. Achoo! Which battalion are you from? Why are you wearing so much powder? This is a battlefield, not a powder house. How outrageous. Ao Jisun said coldly. The moment he came back, he saw that the base was in chaos. Just as he was burning with anxiety, he vented his anger on Unlucky 9. Unlucky 9's heart was like a beeping dog. Damn it, he was just one step away from escaping, but he just had to bump into this farting crown prince. He was really unlucky. She could only say in a hoarse voice, "Your subordinate knows his mistake, your subordinate knows his mistake." Just now, the nightmare beast suddenly went into a riot. Your subordinate was so anxious that I spilled a box of powder on my body. Your subordinate didn't do it on purpose. Hearing Yun Chujia's words, Aojis' expression eased up a little. Then, he heard someone shouting that Yun Chujio had run away. His heart sank, and he quickly jumped over. Yun Chujio heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. Just as she was about to leave, she heard an arrogant woman's voice say, "It just so happens that I came in a hurry and didn't bring my maid over. You're quite pleasing to the eye. You can serve me for the time being." Yun Chujio was afraid that Aog would notice her, so she didn't dare to look up. Now, she realized that Aog didn't come back alone, and there was a beautiful young woman following him. Yun Chujio's heart was like 10,000 divine beasts whizzing past. How could she be so unlucky? It was not easy to deceive Aog, and now there was a bullshit princess. What the fuck? This guy wanted to force his way in, but there were many guards behind this princess, and they all seemed to be experts. Why not take this princess as a hostage? Hei Shinjio still felt that it was not very safe. Let's not talk about whether she could successfully kidnap the princess. Even if she could successfully kidnap the princess, Aojis' speed was so fast that he did not look like a human after he used the secret technique last time. She still could not escape. Just as he was hesitating, the princess snorted unhappily, "What? You are not happy to serve me? Kill her. I am an eyesore." What the fuck? Where did this idiot come from? He wanted to kill her just because of a disagreement. Although he was cursing in his heart, he said, Princess, you have misunderstood. I was too excited for a moment. I was so excited that I could not speak. To be able to serve you is a blessing that I have cultivated for 8 lifetimes." When the princess heard Yun Chujio's words, she revealed a smug look on her face. "You sure know how to talk. What's your name?" Yun Chujio thought to herself, how would she know what her name was? She had never studied those lousy names of the Yen clan. What if they were exposed? This fellow rolled his eyes and said in a fawning manner, "Princess, it's fine if I don't use my original name. Princess, please bestow a name on this subordinate." The princess was obviously very satisfied with Yun Chujio's explanation. She curled her lips and said, "You are quite smart. I heard that Brother Crown Prince hates an ugly human named Ling Xiaojiu very much. From now on, you will be called Kill Xiaojiu. The freshly made Kill Xiaojiu, thank you for the name, Princess. This name is really great. Princess, you are really a talented girl who is both civil and martial." Yun Chujio said this, but in her heart, she had killed this bullshit princess more than 10,000 times. Fuck, she killed little Jiu. From now on, this great aunt will change her name to Kill the Nightmare Clan. Kill the Nightmare Clan. Kill the Nightmare Clan. Fuck. The princess pouted. What happened? Did Ling Xiaojiu run away? The nightmare beast suddenly went into a riot. She might have escaped during the chaos. Yun Chujio lowered her head and said respectfully. Without the crown prince, these people can't do anything. They can't even take care of an ugly human. What a waste. The princess said disdainfully. Yun Chujio naturally couldn't say anything. She lowered her head and pretended to be obedient. I heard that Leng Xiaojia's real name is Yun Chujiu. I heard that she is the #1 enemy of the Divine Devil Hall, is that right? The princess asked. I heard that's the case. The people of the human race said that Leng Xiaojiu is Yun Chujiu. Yun Chujiu felt awkward in her heart. No matter who had the name of killing her and said her name, it would be awkward, okay? Humph. The Divine Devil Temple boasts that they are powerful, but they can't even take care of an ugly human. I think they are just bragging. The princess said disdainfully. Yun Chujia's heart moved. The nightmare race was a fence-sitter, so they were on the side of the demons. Could it be that they were really related to the Divine Devil Temple when they came out to stir up trouble this time? At this time, the nightmare beast had already returned to normal. In addition, AOG had returned, and order had been restored in the base. However, AOG was furious and said that he would find Yun Chujiu even if he had to dig 3 feet into the ground. Brother Crown Prince, calm down first. That Leng Xiaojiu won't be able to run far. I'm sure you can catch her. Besides, if you can catch her once, you can catch her a second time. You'll catch her sooner or later. Pian, you've had a tough journey. Go and settle down first. You've seen the Nightmare Clan base. If there's nothing else, you can go back tomorrow. AOG said coldly, then, he turned around and led his men to search for Yun Chujiu. The princess stomped her feet unwillingly and glared at Yun Chujiu, who was pretending to be obedient. It's all your fault. If it wasn't for the strong scent of incense on your body, why would Brother Crown Prince be in such a hurry to leave? Hurry up and get rid of the scent on your body. Yun Chujiu, you fucking can't seduce a man and you're blaming me? Pooey. Shameless. Yun Chujiu felt stifled. Up until now, she only knew that this little bitch was a princess. She seemed to be called something Pian, and she was in love with AOG. She did not know anything else. It would be fine for a short period of time, but after a long time, she would definitely be exposed. Moreover, she would not release her nightmare aura. Sooner or later, she would be exposed. Forget it, it was better to pass this round first. It seemed that this Princess Pian would not stay here for long. When she left, she would think of a way to follow her, and then she would think of a way to escape on the way. Princess Pian's tent was built very quickly. Yun Chujiu helped her wash up again. Only then did Princess Pian rest. As for the freshly made Xiaojiu, since she was a personal maid, she had to stay in the tent to watch the night. This guy wanted to take advantage of Princess Pian's deep sleep to kidnap her, but when he saw the guards outside the tent, he gave up. She was alone now and could not be rash. She had to hit her with one strike, or she would really die. Early the next morning, Yun Chujiu served Princess Pian again. Princess Pian glanced at her. There are very few people in our nightmare clan who look as ugly as you. You can't be that Yun Chujiu, right? Yun Chujiu's heart tightened. She clenched her hands tightly under her sleeves. Just as she was about to attack, she heard Princess Pian twitch her lips and say, "All right, I'm just saying. If you were Yun Chujiu, it would be a miracle. However, your appearance is really quite ugly. It just so happens that you can compliment my beauty." Yun Chujiu heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. Damn it, she had thought that this little bitch had recognized her, but it turned out that she was just spouting nonsense. No wonder she insisted on letting her be her maid. It turned out that her appearance after the disguise was ordinary. What a dog. Let's go. You accompany me to the Crown Prince's brother's place. I want to have breakfast with him. Although Yun Chujiu was unwilling to go, she could only follow behind Princess Pian. This fellow had already thought it through. If AOG recognized her, she would kidnap Princess Pian and drag her down with her even before she died. However, Yun Chujiu was obviously overthinking. Aog did not even look at her. However, it was also true. Even in his dreams, Aog did not expect Yun Chujio to be so bold as to flash in front of him. Princess Pian Pian had set up an exquisite breakfast, fawning over Aog like a lapdog. Of course, the last sentence was He Xinjia's inner line. She now had a lot of resentment towards Princess Pian Pian. If it were not for her, He Xinjio would have long run away. However, this fellow's thoughts quickly shifted to the breakfast on the table. Oh my, I did not expect the Yen clan to be so detestable. Their food looked quite delicious. It could be said that it had all the looks, fragrance, and taste. This fellow had been planning to escape last night, so she didn't eat much. Now that she smelled the fragrance of the food, she suddenly felt extremely hungry. Unfortunately, she was only a servant now. She could only go to eat after her master finished eating. No matter how hungry she was, she had to endure it. Gulp. Gulp. Aog frowned. What was that sound? Yun Chujio wished she could find a hole to hide in. What did it mean when she couldn't even swallow a mouthful of cold water? She was the one. Why was her broken stomach screaming? It really killed her. Princess Pian Pian giggled. Brother Crown Prince, so it was my maid who made the noise. It's rude to be unpresentable. I'll kill her now so as not to affect your appetite. Yun Chujio, was this bullshit princess the long-lost sister of a gigolo? Why did she kill people at the slightest disagreement? Is she crazy? Aog raised his head and glanced at Yun Chujio in the corner, frowning. I remember you didn't bring a maid here. Who is she? Isn't she the soldier who sprinkled the powder yesterday? I had no one to use, so I made her my maid. I even changed her a good name to kill little Jiu, Princess Pian Pian said. She covered her mouth and laughed again. He Xinjiu heard this laughter like an old hen's cry. It was over, it was over. If Aog asked her her original name and checked the roster, she would be finished. He Xinjiu estimated the distance between her and Princess Pian Pian. It was too far, there was no way to succeed. If it really didn't work, she would have to force her way out. Unexpectedly, Aog was probably just asking casually. He glanced at her and then looked away. He said to Princess Pian Pian, Pian Pian, you're messing around again. I'm busy with military affairs here. You can go back today. I'm not going back. I'm going to accompany you to attack the human race here. I believe that Brother Crown Prince will soon break through the human race's defense line, P and a novel. Maojis expression darkened. I've already given my aunt some face by letting you go to the front line. If you continue to cause trouble, I'll tie you up and send you back to the Ankang Manor. Princess Pian Pian stomped her feet. I don't care. Unless you agree to marry me, I'll just stay here and not leave. TSK, this meant that a woman was chasing a man. This Princess Pian Pian was really infatuated. She actually chased him to the front line. It had to be said that this fellow was really big-hearted. At this time, he still had the heart to gossip about others. Aojis expression was very ugly, but he seemed to be unable to do anything to this Princess Pian Pian. He was silent for a moment, then, he said, go back obediently. Give me a month to think about it. I will give you an answer when the time comes. Princess Pian Pian's face lit up. She knew that Aog would most likely agree to it if he said so. She immediately beamed with joy. All right, I will listen to you, Brother Crown Prince. I will go back after having breakfast with you. He Xinjia's heart was instantly filled with joy. This was great. As long as she left with Princess Pian Pian, she would definitely have a way to escape midway. This was truly wonderful. Just as this fellow was feeling extremely happy, he heard Aog say, coincidentally, there's a portion of the soldiers that need to be changed. I'll get Mo Wan to lead them to protect you. Yun Chujio consoled herself. Having more people wasn't a big deal, and Mo Wan following wasn't a big deal either. She could still find a way to return. Yes, definitely. This fellow's good mood came to an abrupt end when they set off. Princess Pian Pian said with a look of disdain, "You're so clumsy in doing things. Just stay here and be a soldier." Yun Chujio, Princess. Princess. Just take me in. Although I'm ugly and clumsy, my name was given to me by you. When you and the Crown Prince are married, will you be able to talk more about me when you think of my name? Pan DN0VLC. Princess Pian Pian was obviously pleased by Yun Chujio's words about her and Aog getting married. The smile on her face was almost overflowing. "Alright, since you still know how to speak, come with me." "Thank you, Princess." Hei Shinjio heaved a sigh of relief. As long as she left the Nightmare Race's camp, she would definitely think of a way to leave. This fellow followed behind Princess Pian Pian and left the Nightmare Race's camp. However, when he saw the tens of thousands of Nightmare Race troops in front of him, his heart broke down. Why were there so many people? Was there a need for such a huge change in defense? Could she go back on her words? As the main target of protection, Princess Pian Pian was naturally protected in the middle of the Nightmare Race's army. Yun Chujio, this personal maid, could only bitterly follow by her side. As time passed, this fellow had basically given up on escaping. She had no way of leaving Mo Wan's line of sight. Mo Wan was like a good hunting dog, staring at her at all times. To be exact, he was staring at Princess Pian Pian. Yun Chujio quickly figured out what was going on. Mo Wan actually had a crush on Princess Pian Pian. Princess Pian was madly in love with Aog again. Oh my, what a drama. Yun Chujio tried all means to escape from Mo Wan's sight, but she was mercilessly killed by Mo Wan. Mo Wan had only one reason: the princess only had her maid now. If she left, who would take care of the princess? Yun Chujio was furious. No matter how much she thought about it, she did not expect Mo Wan to be Princess Pian Pian's admirer. Moreover, he was the type of admirer who was a brainless fan. Hei Shinjo secretly thought that Aog would not intentionally let Mo Wan send this Princess Pian Pian, right? Was it to let them develop a relationship? The 10,000 feet tall Gobi was less than 2 days away from the Yen clan's nest. Hei Xinjia's escape plan had completely failed. This fellow had a big heart. She thought to herself that she wouldn't be able to escape anyway. Since she had come, she should just take it as it was. Damn it, they had forced her to do this. If she didn't turn the Yen clan's lair upside down, she wouldn't be called to kill little Jiu. Ah, Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio had originally thought that the Yen clan's lair was also a desert or a Gobi desert. She had never thought that the Yen clan's territory wasn't any different from the other places in the Immortal Origin continent. Moreover, the territory was vast and it wasn't just a corner of the continent. Yun Chujio curled her lips in her heart. The Yen clan was really insatiable. What was wrong with this place? Why did they have to start a war with the humans? This fellow was afraid of being exposed, so he didn't talk much along the way. Moreover, he wasn't as fawning over Princess Pian Pian as before. The reason why this fellow was like this was because he felt that if she was too pleasing to Princess Pian Pian's heart, she might be placed in an important position. When that time came, a tall tree would attract the wind. Once someone exposed that she wasn't from the Yen clan, it would be terrible. After walking for another 2 days, they finally arrived at the capital city of the Yen clan. The city walls were tall and sturdy, and the city gates exuded an ancient and majestic aura. It seemed like they had quite a foundation. Mo Wan sent Princess Pian Pian to the Prince Ankang's residence before he left. Before Princess Pian Pian entered the residence, a large group of maidservants and old women came out to welcome her. Some of them even revealed jealous expressions when they saw Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio, Pian Dan 0 Vel. C0M, are you kidding me? Was a mere servant worthy of these people's jealousy? Princess Pian Pian was clearly enjoying the scene of the stars surrounding her. She glanced at Yun Chujio, who was standing obediently behind her. She said to a servant girl, "Zai, this killing little Jio is a servant girl that I took in at the front line. She's clumsy, so she can be considered a third-class servant girl." Hearing Princess Pian Pian's words, some of the old servant girls looked at Yun Chujio with even more hostility. Yun Chujio's heart was like a beeping dog. How could a third-class servant girl attract jealousy? Could it be that these people only had a little pursuit in life? Princess Pian Pian still had to pay her respects to Prince Ankang and Princess Ankang, so Yun Chujio naturally couldn't follow her. Zai arranged for her to be with a servant girl called Qing Ling. Yun Chujio ridiculed in her heart. Qing Ling. Wasn't that clear? Zero? This name was really lacking in skill. The few people in the spirit beast pouch silently ridiculed. Only a useless person like you had the nerve to make fun of others. Pooey. What's your name again? You killed little Jill, right? You've really reached the heavens in a single step. Who in our nightmare race doesn't know that Princess Pian Pian is going to marry the crown prince in the future? That would be the future empress. As long as our princess marries the crown prince, even if we are third-class handmaidens, we can still be married to some officials or generals in the future. Even some officials and young ladies might not be able to marry as well as us. Qing Ling said rather proudly. Yun Chujio silently ridiculed in her heart. Didn't this answer the phrase "one person achieves the Tao, chickens and dogs ascend to heaven"? Yun Chujio cooperated and revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. She fawningly said, "Sister Qing Ling, my family is poor and I don't have much knowledge, so I followed you to become a soldier. I hope you can give me more advice in the future. This is just a small token of my appreciation. Don't think it's too little." He Xinjiu took out a few pieces of the captured nightmare stones and handed them to Qingling. Seeing that Yun Chujio was so tactful, Qingling's smile became more sincere. "Little sister Jiu, our third-grade maids usually do cleaning and the like. As long as we are honest, there won't be any problems. But there's one thing you must remember, that if the princess chooses someone to follow her to the nightmare ancestors' land, you must never follow her." Yun Chujio did not know anything about the land of the Nightmare Lord, but she could not ask directly, so she could only nod her head. Qing Ling continued, "Don't think that following the princess to the land of the Nightmare Lord is a good thing. Let me remind you, don't be foolish. The Crown Prince is the object of love for all the girls of our Nightmare clan, and some of our princess love rivals often go to the land of the Nightmare Lord. Think about it. Our princess has such a fiery temper. She often conflicts with those people. In the end, the unlucky ones always follow the princess handmaidens. However, generally speaking, the princess usually brings first and second-class handmaidens. It shouldn't be our turn. Don't worry." Yun Chujio nodded. So that was the case. Fortunately, she was smart and did not deliberately curry favor with Princess Pian Pian on the way. Otherwise, she might have been made a first-class handmaiden. She was really prescient. This guy was soon slapped in the face. Early in the morning the next day, Ziyi came to look for her. "Little sister Jiu, according to reason, you just arrived and should not have accompanied the princess to the land of the Nightmare Lord. However, the princess likes you very much and specifically asked you to go, so follow me." Although Ziyi's expression was well hidden, she still revealed a hint of schadenfreude. Yun Chujio felt that she had been extremely unlucky recently. What she was afraid of came true. She had always felt guilty, but now, she actually wanted to follow Princess Pian Pian to the land of the Nightmare Lord. It was simply killing her. However, she couldn't not go. That Princess Pian Pian was arrogant and unruly. Once she wasn't happy, she might even want to kill her. Therefore, the unlucky Jiao could only follow Princess Pian Pian out of the Ankang royal residence and head straight for the land of the Nightmare Lord. The land of the demon ancestor was close to the capital city. However, Princess Pian Pian did not go there on foot due to her status. Instead, she sat on an exquisite carriage pulled by a demon beast. The unlucky nine was not bad. She also enjoyed herself. Yes, she sat on the edge of the carriage. This fellow's eyeballs were rolling around. When she entered the city, she did not have the chance to take a good look at it. Now, she saw that the capital city of the demon clan was very prosperous. People came and went on the streets and alleys. However, the spiritual powers of the people coming and going were not very high, which was understandable. After all, those with high spiritual powers had gone to the front lines to fight. He Xinjiu narrowed her eyes. Her current identity had basically been washed clean, but she could not release the nightmare chi. She did not know whether the nightmare chi of the nightmare clan was cultivated or born with it, so she could only deal with it as it came. Oh right, there was also the problem of the disguise pill. A disguise pill only had the effect of 10 days, and she only had one left in her hands. It would be great if she could find the medicinal ingredients to refine the disguise pill. The carriage soon arrived at the so-called Nightmare Ancestors' land. It was a place that was enclosed by a tall wall. It was impossible to see what was going on inside from outside. He Xinjiu was mumbling in her heart. What exactly was the Nightmare Ancestors' land? However, He Xinjia's attention was attracted by the plaque of the Nightmare Ancestors' land. She discovered that the materials used for the plaque of the Nightmare Ancestors' land were the same as the material of the huge coffin that she found in the Chaos Origin sect. It was made from the wood of the ancient strange tree, citron. Even though this tablet was very old, one could still faintly smell the unique fragrance of citron. Why are you standing there for killing little Jiao? Why aren't you following me in? Princess Pian Pian said with extreme displeasure. Yun Chujiu came back to her senses and hurriedly took 2 steps to chase after Princess Pian Pian. Wait a minute. It's a routine inspection. The 2 guards said in a businesslike manner. Yun Chujiu's heart skipped a beat. Routine inspection? What inspection? Yun Chujiu said timidly to Princess Pian Pian, Princess, they want to check. Can you wait for me for a moment? Princess Pian Pian glared at the 2 guards impatiently. What's there to check? Do the people I brought still need to be checked? Moreover, the prophecy had been going on for tens of thousands of years, but there was still no sign of it. Shouldn't they hurry up and follow? What are you waiting for? Yun Chujiu hurriedly took 2 steps to chase after Princess Pian Pian. The 2 guards opened their mouths and did not stop her. Everyone in the nightmare race knew that Princess Pian Pian was the most arrogant and domineering person. If they offended her, it was possible that they would be killed immediately. However, that was also true. The prophecy in the land of the nightmare ancestors had been going on for tens of thousands of years, but it had never been fulfilled. How could it be so coincidental? That little handmaiden was the nightmare of the nightmare race. Yun Chujiu silently gave herself 120 likes in her heart. Although she did not know what the inspection was for, it was still good to avoid it. After all, she was not a member of the nightmare clan. Yun Chujiu followed behind Princess Pian Pian and secretly sized up the so-called land of the nightmare ancestors. This fellow felt strange in his heart. Why did this so-called land of the nightmare ancestors look more and more like a mausoleum the more he looked at it? This land of the nightmare ancestor couldn't be someone's cemetery, right? From what Qin Ling said, the nightmare clansmen would come to this land of the nightmare ancestor every few days. This nightmare clansman was really sick. Why would he go to the cemetery for nothing? Pay respects. There was no need to pay respects so frequently, right? Just as Yun Chujio was feeling puzzled in her heart, a few female voices sounded from behind. Oh, isn't this the famous Princess Pian Pian? Has she returned from the front line? TSK, the few of us really can't compare to Princess Pian Pian. Even though we knew that the war was urgent, we still shamelessly followed the crown prince to the front line. How sensible. However, it's such a pity. No matter how attentive she is, the crown prince might not like her. Yun Chujio's head hurt a little. It's over. These bastards were probably Qin Ling's love rivals. If the immortals fought, the little kids would be in trouble. They were going to be unlucky again. As expected, Princess Pian Pian was furious when she heard the words of these girls. Shut up. Or else I'll go to the Empress Aunt and sue you all. I'll marry all of you to the commoners. After hearing Princess Pian Pian's words, not only were the girls not afraid, they were even more brazen. We're so scared. Princess Pian Pian, please spare us. Ha! Chia Pian Pian, can you have some brains? Not to mention the Empress, even His Majesty King Yen would not easily offend the 4 great aristocratic families, much less marry us to a commoner. That's right, do you really think you can marry the crown prince? Your Ankang imperial residence is just an empty shell. What benefits does the crown prince have by marrying you? He will definitely choose one of us. Princess Pian Pian's face flushed red. It was obvious that these people's words had hit her sore spot. The reason why the crown prince did not agree to marry her was because of these bitches. The power of the 4 great aristocratic families was deeply rooted. Even King Yen had to be restrained by them. Otherwise, the crown prince would not be in a hurry to start a war with the human race. Princess Pian Pian's gaze fell on Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio immediately had a bad premonition. Humph. Do you know who she is? Brother Crown Prince saw that I didn't bring a maid, so he gave her to me. Did Brother Crown Prince give her to your maid? He probably didn't even give her anything, right? I was childhood friends with Brother Crown Prince, and you want to compete with me? Humph. Princess Pian Pian took back a city, and suddenly felt that bringing this little Jiao back was the right decision. When the girls heard Princess Pian Pian's words, their gazes immediately fell on the unlucky ninth who was trying her best to reduce her presence. Humph. She's just a trash at the first layer of the spiritual void tier. I reckon that His Highness the Crown Prince thinks that she's too trash, that's why he gave her to you. That's right. There are so many handmaidens like this, what's there to show off about? Besides, she's too ugly. If I had such a handmaiden, I would feel that it's beneath my dignity. You still treat it like a treasure, you're really ignorant, Pandi N0 Vel. Calm Yun Chujio was furious. You guys are the fucking trash. Fortunately, when she was escaping, she deliberately adjusted the level of her spiritual power from the 6th level to the 1st level of the spiritual void tier. If she was at the 6th level of the spiritual void tier, wouldn't she be laughed at by these people? Princess Pian Pian was obviously the kind of person who had a temper but no brain. After being smacked a few times by the 4 girls, she was suddenly so angry that she didn't know what to say. The 4 girls had the upper hand and mocked them a few more times. Then, they left while chatting and laughing. Looking at their backs, Princess Pian Pian was so angry that she stomped her feet. Then, she vented her anger on hapless Jiao. What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and leave, you piece of trash. Yun Chujio, this fellow narrowed his eyes. It was not too late for little Jiao to take revenge. Little bitch, just you wait. After walking for about 15 minutes, Yun Chujio found that there was a vast fog in front of her. She could not see anything. Just as she was puzzled, she saw Princess Pian take out a jade token. After forming a seal with both hands, an ancient and heavy door appeared in the fog. Princess Pian Pian pushed the door open and walked in. He Xinjiu naturally followed her in. After entering, her line of sight suddenly widened. This was indeed a sacrificial temple. He Xinjiu was even more confused. Normally, only fixed days would come for the sacrificial ceremony. Why would these people come here every few days? This fellow felt that it was not bad to look at the Yen clan's primogenitor. She did not know what the Yen clan's primogenitor looked like. However, when she saw the Yen clan's primogenitor, she felt rather disappointed. It was just a handsome man. Moreover, Yun Chujio felt that the man's gaze looked treacherous and sinister. She felt inexplicably displeased. Of course, even if this fellow was displeased, he still followed the crowd and paid his respects. Yun Chujio originally thought that she could leave after paying her respects. She did not expect that after Princess Pian Pian and the women from the 4 great clans left the sacrificial hall, they would go around to the back. He Xinjiu was shocked. There was actually a sacrificial hall behind them, and it was much more exquisite and luxurious than the previous one. This fellow was secretly thinking, could it be that the Yen clan had 2 ancestors? What surprised her even more was that the women from the 4 great clans and Princess Pian Pian did not enter the sacrificial hall. Instead, they directly knelt on the green stone slab at the entrance. He Xinjiu could only kneel to the side as well. Her curiosity was overflowing. Were these people sick? Why didn't they enter? Just as He Xinjiu was feeling puzzled, she saw Princess Pian Pian and the women from the 4 great families, as well as the maids they brought, began to recite the blessings devoutly. He Xinjiu, fuck, I don't understand a single word. The words these people were saying were the same as the songs sung by the nightmare race soldier. They were all using the ancient language of the nightmare race, so He Xinjiu naturally didn't understand a single word. He Xinjiu was afraid that she would be exposed, so she hurriedly followed suit and recited. Of course, this fellow only opened his mouth and didn't make a sound. Finally, everyone finished reciting and respectfully exited the sacrificial temple from a nearby passageway to the back. He Xinjiu felt that she had really broadened her horizons. She had not expected that there would be a waterfall behind this sacrificial temple. What surprised her even more was that Princess Pian Pian and the women from the 4 great clans had actually taken off their outer clothes and jumped into the pool below the waterfall while wearing only their inner clothes. He Xinjia's face did not show it, but she was completely dumbfounded in her heart. What was going on in the minds of these people from the nightmare race? These people ran to the so-called nightmare ancestors' land just to take a bath. Just as He Xinjiu was stunned, she noticed that the 4 maidservants from the 4 great clans also took off their outer clothes and went into the waterfall. However, in order not to offend their master, they could only carefully bathe at the edge of the pool. He Xinjiu looked left and right. She was the only one left on the shore. In order not to expose herself, she had no choice but to go into the pool as well. However, this fellow did not take off his outer clothes, so who knew if it was safe inside? It was better for her to be careful. Apparently, no one cared too much about her and focused on bathing. He Xinjiu was even more confused. Wasn't it just a bath? Why did these people look so pious? After a while, everyone finished bathing and went ashore. He Xinjiu helped Princess Pian Pian change into a coat before drying her wet clothes with spiritual power. Then, she randomly put on a coat outside. Princess Pian Pian glared at her, but she didn't say anything. Yun Chujio then realized that ever since they entered the sacrificial temple, these people hadn't said a single word apart from reciting the Zhu Wen. After they walked around the waterfall, they started to speak softly. Through their conversation, Yun Chujio had a preliminary understanding of the Yen clan's 4 great families, namely the Ji family, the Mu family, the Lien family, and the Yin family. The 4 women were all the direct daughters of the clan. Ji Lian, Mu Yan, Lian Yi, and Yin Shuangshuang. After walking for a while, the volume of their voices began to increase. Princess Pian Pian, last time, the 5 of us, you absorbed the least amount of nightmare energy. You lost to me for 10,000 nightmare stones. How about we increase the stakes this time? Ji Lian said provocatively. Humph. You can decide how much you want. Why would I, Princess Pian Pian, be afraid of you? Princess Pian Pian said disdainfully. Okay, then let's change the stakes to 20,000 nightmare stones and a maid. What do you think? Ji Lian deliberately glanced at Yun Chujio when she said this. Yun Chujio's heart skipped a beat. What was the meaning of adding a maid? If Princess Pian Pian lost, she would belong to the winner, or would she have to be killed? Princess Pian Pian didn't agree immediately, and her expression was somewhat hesitant. Ji Lian said provocatively, what? You wouldn't be afraid to accept the challenge, right? It's just a little handmaiden. Could it be that you can't bear to part with her? That's true. I reckon that this handmaiden is someone you shamelessly begged from the crown prince. Naturally, you can't bear to part with her. Princess Pian Pian gritted her teeth. Humph. Let's gamble then. I'll agree to it. However, what if one of you is ranked last? Ji Lian said nonchalantly, if we lose, it'll be the same. If we lose to the first place, we'll lose 20,000 nightmare stones and a servant girl. The nightmare stones will be yours, and the servant girl will be sacrificed to the sacred beast of the nightmare race. Yun Chujie's heart was like a beeping dog. No wonder Qin Ling had instructed her not to follow Princess Pian Pian to the land of the nightmare race. So it turned out that these little bastards would always sacrifice living humans to the so-called bullshit sacred beast. This fellow consoled himself. The probability of Princess Pian Pian losing was 1 in 5. She might not be so unlucky and lose. Also, what did they mean by absorbing nightmare chi? Yun Chujio stole a glance at the other 4 maids. She did not see any worry or fear on their faces. Instead, she was somewhat gloating. Needless to say, the target of their gloating was Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio's heart tightened. Looking at how fearless they were, there was a high chance that Princess Pian Pian would lose. What should she do then? Before Yun Chujio could think of a good idea, everyone arrived in front of a round platform. In the middle of the round platform was a statue of a demonic beast. It looked extremely ferocious and had 4 vertical pupils that looked like snakes. There were a few grooves around the round platform. Princess Pian Pian and the rest put their jade tokens into the grooves and knelt down to recite the blessing. The content was exactly the same as the chanting in the sacrificial hall. Hei Xinjiu still could not understand a single word. Hei Xinjia's focus was now on the monster. Oh my, wasn't that ugly thing the nightmare beast that was locked up in the forbidden grounds of Tian Yuan Academy? Meng Yanshou. Back then, she had tricked this thing into swearing her loyalty to her. She had even given it the name Curly Hair and promised it that she would save it after finding the Heaven Punisher axe or the 10,000-year fire marrow. Was it actually the so-called sacred beast of the Yen clan? Then, the question arose. Since Curly Hair was locked up in Tianyuan Academy, how were they going to sacrifice the so-called sacred beast? Could it be that there were other Meng Yanshou in this world? Didn't Curly Hair say that it was the only one? Yun Chujio looked at Princess Pian Pian and the others. As they chanted, the statue of Meng Yanshou emitted a black nightmare aura from its mouth. Then, it was divided into 5 portions and poured into Princess Pian Pian and the others' jade tokens. Yun Chujio judged with her naked eyes that Princess Pian Pian's portion was the least. This fellow's heart skipped a beat. She was afraid that she was going to be unlucky. Should she run or what should she do? There were many guards outside the Nightmare Ancestors' land. It wouldn't be easy to escape. Otherwise, should she kidnap Princess Pian Pian? It wouldn't work either. Even if they could leave the Nightmare Ancestors' land, they wouldn't be able to escape the territory of the Nightmare clan. It was better to first see what was going on with their so-called sacrificial offering and then act according to the situation. After a while, the Nightmare Beast statue no longer emitted any nightmare chi from its mouth. Only then did Princess Pian Pian and the others stop chanting. Ji Lian glanced at the round platform, and then said proudly, "Mine is 400 nightmare chi points. How much is yours?" Yun Chujio stretched her neck and looked. Only then did she realize that there were 9 circles on the sides of the grooves where the jade tokens were placed. Ji Lian's one lit up with 4 circles. This fellow took another look. The other 3 people had lit up 3 dots, and only 2 dots lit up on the corresponding grooves of Princess Pian Pian. This fellow had long been mentally prepared for this, so he wasn't too surprised. Princess Pian Pian's expression was very ugly. "This is 20,000 nightmare stones. Men, lock this Leng Xiaojiu into the Holy Beast Hall and consecrate the Holy Beast." Yun Chujia's heart moved. So it was just a lock. This guy felt that rather than fighting with these nightmare clansmen, he might as well go and see the so-called Holy Beast. Perhaps it was Curly Hair's little cub. It was much easier to trick the nightmare clansmen than to trick the beasts. Therefore, this guy did not resist at all. He was escorted to the second sacrificial temple by 2 guards from the Nightmare Ancestors' land. This guy wanted to get some information, but the 2 guards' expressions were solemn. They did not pay any attention to her and even threatened her. If they spoke again, she would be knocked out. This guy had no choice but to stop. When they arrived at the entrance of the second sacrificial hall, the 2 guards continued to recite the Incubusiancient language. They then opened the door of the divine hall and pushed He Xinjiu in. As soon as He Xinjiu entered, the door of the hall was closed. This guy looked around and found that the interior was very luxurious, but the most eye-catching one was the statue of Meng Yanshou in front of him. This statue was much bigger than the one on the round platform, and it was even more vivid. While Yun Chujio was looking around, the statue spoke in human language. "It's another little kid with heavenly thunder spirit root. Last time, I was kidnapped by a brat, and now I can take it out on you." Yun Chujio burst into laughter. "Hey, Curly Hair, you're good. Weren't you locked up in the Tianyuan continent? Why are you here pretending to be a ghost again?" After Yun Chujio said this, the entire divine hall suddenly became quiet. There was no sound at all. Yun Chujio sneered, "Curly Hair, do you think that you'll be fine as long as you don't make a sound? You swore an oath in your heart. You have to listen to me for the rest of your life. I'm ordering you now, get out." As soon as Yun Chujio finished speaking, a black mist drifted out from the statue and transformed into the appearance of Meng Yanshou. However, the originally fierce expression was filled with flattery. "Little fairy, so it's you. How did you change your appearance? I was blind and couldn't recognize you. Why did you come here?" Meng Yanshou felt as if he had seen a ghost. Fuck, wasn't this Jinx in the Tianyuan continent? Why did it come to the Yen clan? Humph. You still have the cheek to ask me? Tell me, what's going on? How did you become the holy beast of the Yen clan? Yun Chujio took out a chair from her storage ring and sat on it with her legs crossed as she asked. Meng Yanshou was like a lapdog as it knelt in front of He Xinjiu. It sighed and said, "Little fairy, you promised to let me out, but I waited for you on the left and you didn't come on the right, so I could only come to the Yen clan to play, speak in human language." Yun Chujio didn't believe his nonsense. The so-called land of the Yen clan had existed for many years. It was possible that it had existed for tens of thousands of years. How could Curly Hair have just arrived? Meng Yanshou, he really wanted to shout at this black-hearted brat, damn it, I'm a Meng Yanshou. He couldn't speak human language when he was a human. However, it did not dare to. Just as Meng Yanshou was about to make up a story, He Xinjiu said coldly, "You'd better tell me the truth, or your body will never be able to regain its freedom." Meng Yanshou's 4 vertical pupils immediately lit up. "Little fairy, have you found the key to the Heaven Punisher axe or the iron chain? Or have you found the 10,000-year-old fire marrow?" Yun Chujiu snorted coldly. "Don't even think about the key. I've asked Dean Huangfu of the Tianyuan Institute in a roundabout way. He doesn't even know what's inside the Forbidden Land, let alone the key to the chains." Meng Yanshou immediately became dispirited. It knew that it wouldn't be so easy to regain its freedom. "However, the Heaven Punisher Divine Axe and the 10,000-year-old Fire Marrow are in my hands." Meng Yanshou suddenly stood up. "Little fairy, is what you said true? I knew that you are not an ordinary person. If you were an ordinary person, you would have been killed by Tian Dao. Little fairy, then don't waste time. Hurry back to the Tianyuan continent and release my main body so that I can follow you and kill everyone." Yun Chujiu glanced at it. "Why are you in such a hurry? I haven't finished speaking. Although the Heaven Punisher axe and the 10,000-year-old fire marrow are in my hands, I still have no way to release you." Meng Yanshou thought that Yun Chujiu was taking advantage of him and said pitifully, "Little fairy, I'm your beast now. You can't just ignore me. You have to be responsible for me." Yun Chujiu, why did it feel like she was giving herself to him? "It's not that I don't care about you, but the Xingtian godly axe has somehow turned into a huge kitchen knife. Although it's pretty awesome, it's still very difficult to cut the 10,000-year-old black iron. Moreover, you're trapped by 6 10,000-year-old profound iron chains, so I'm afraid that you won't be able to cut through them for the time being. As for Little Flame, he's just a little brat who doesn't have any intelligence yet, so he won't be able to cut through the 10,000-year-old profound iron chains." In order to prove what she said, Yun Chujiu took out the large kitchen knife. "If you don't believe me, take a look for yourself. Not only is this large kitchen knife chipped, but there's also a crack on it. I'm afraid that it'll be finished before the 10,000-year-old profound iron chains are cut off." The moment the nightmare beast saw the large kitchen knife, its heart turned cold. Meng Yanshou thought to himself. This was obviously a broken kitchen knife. Could the little girl be lying to it again? Yun Chujiu saw through the nightmare beast's intentions at a glance. She raised her hand and summoned the small flame. The small flame lazily circled around the nightmare beast. Meng Yanshou trembled for a moment. This degree of heat, it was indeed not something that could be emitted by ordinary flames. "Curly hair, did you see that? I have always taken your matter to heart. Don't worry. It won't be long before the big kitchen knife will regain its divine weapon's elegance. The little flame can also turn into a big flame. At that time, I will go and save you." He Xinjiu said with a smile. Meng Yanshou really wanted to spit at her and treat her as a fool. Putting aside whether that broken kitchen knife was the Heaven Punisher's divine axe, just this small flame alone would take a long time to turn into a big flame. And a novel. However, Meng Yanshou only thought about it. It had already sworn on its heart demon oath, and it had no way to do anything to the black heart in front of it. It could only comfort itself. Compared to the hopeless days before, now, it finally had some hope. "Curly hair, now it's time for you to tell me the truth, right? Isn't your main body in the Tianyuan continent? Why did your spiritual sense come to the Yen clan to play tricks?" Yun Chujiu took out a spirit fruit and asked as she chewed on it. Meng Yanshou swallowed its saliva, it sighed. "Little fairy, when I was captured, I split my spiritual sense into 2. Half of it was locked in the Tianyuan continent with my main body, and the other half was trapped here by the Yen clan. Woo woo, I can't believe I, an ancient beast, ended up in this state. It's so painful that I wish I could die. Shut up. You said you were trapped by a nightmare beast. Is it the man from the temple in front? Yun Chujio briefly described the man's appearance. Yes, it's him. It's that bastard. Back then, I was in a hurry to escape and was trapped here by his schemes. I could only provide them with free nightmare chi. Immiserable, woo-woo, Yun Chujio was speechless. Could it be that Meng Yanshou had been locked up for a long time and had become a crybaby? Enough. Stop crying. Tell me, how can I let you go? Yun Chujio was so smart that she had long seen through Meng Yanshou's intentions. Meng Yanshou revealed a flattering smile on his face. His 4 vertical pupils shone like little stars in the sky. Little fairy, you are the lover that I have been waiting for tens of thousands of years. We must have made an agreement in our previous life. Get lost. Damn it, whose dream did this damn Meng Yanshou see before? How could it be so similar to the lines in the storybook? Little fairy, actually, as long as you destroy the statue on the round platform outside, I will be able to leave this broken temple. However, I am a remnant soul, so you have to help me find something to hide, Meng Yanshou said flatteringly. Is the 10,000-year-old green jade porcelain bottle okay? Yun Chujio was now familiar with collecting remnant souls. That's not necessary. I was born out of human greed. My soul won't dissipate when I'm outside. Moreover, the heavenly lightning can't kill me, so under normal circumstances, the heavenly lightning won't strike me. Just help me find the body of a demonic beast. I've been trapped for tens of thousands of years. I can enjoy a body too. Meng Yanshou swallowed his saliva. It had been a long time since he ate anything. The fruit that the black-hearted little girl ate looked very delicious. Yun Chujio touched her chin. It would be great if this Meng Yanshou could attract the heavenly lightning. Therefore, she could not find a host that was too strong for it. It would be best if the host was weak and the heavenly lightning felt that it would be easy to kill it, since it would not die anyway, she could just change the host when the time came. Therefore, a certain Jiao took out a wind-blade rabbit from the great void mystic realm. Here, I only have this one living demon beast here. Make do with it first. I will help you find another powerful demon beast when I have time. The poor nightmare beast did not know He Xinjia's plan. Although it despised Meng Yanshou, it felt that at least it had legs and a mouth. It did not hinder it from eating, so it was still okay. Therefore, the miserable nightmare beast started the miserable days of changing its shell countless times. When Yun Chujio saw the half-soul of the nightmare beast enter the body of the wind-blade rabbit, it successfully possessed Meng Yanshou almost instantly. However, it was also true that the wind-blade rabbit was the lowest-level demon beast. Its spiritual sense could not compare with the nightmare beast at all. Ha ha ha. I can finally go out and have fun. Little fairy, hurry up and destroy the statue, then I can go out. Meng Yanshou, who had just come out of the oven, was jumping with joy. Yun Chujio frowned. Curly hair, that's not right. You said that you provided the Nightmare clan with nightmare chi. Could it be that they don't know how to cultivate nightmare chi and are only here to absorb you? Moreover, you're only half a soul. How can you release the nightmare chi? Moreover, you're continuously releasing the nightmare chi. Meng Yanshou's eyes flickered as he said perfunctorily, their nightmare clan can also cultivate the nightmare chi. It's just that their speed is slow. That's why they came here to take advantage of me. Yun Chujio snorted coldly. Don't play tricks with me. Answer my second question. How can you have so much nightmare chi to release? Not to mention that you're half a soul now, even your main body can't continuously release nightmare chi, right? Moreover, your natural talent is to weave dreams, not release nightmare chi. Meng Yanshou's heart turned cold. He knew that this black-hearted girl was not easy to fool. He originally thought that she had overlooked this point, but he didn't expect that she would still discover it. Little fairy, all right. Since you have discovered it, I will tell you the truth. However, there are some things that I cannot say. Once I say it, I will be punished by Tian Dao. It is not as simple as heavenly thunder, Meng Yanshou said with a drooping head. Tell me what you can. If you dare to lie to me again, I will make you into a curly-haired rabbit. He Xinjia's heart moved. It was not bad to give the rabbit a perm. This was more in line with Curly Hair's name. Meng Yanshou did not know what He Xinjiu was thinking. He said honestly, the progenitor of the nightmare race is not that bastard from before. They did not live in the immortal Yuan continent. It was just that during the Great War between the gods and demons, the nightmare race defected to the demons, so the entire race was tricked into coming to the immortal Yuan continent. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. Yun Chuzhou asked in surprise, what did you say? They were tricked by the demon race. You mean the Yen race came to the immortal Yuan continent later? Then where is their nest? Meng Yanshou curled his lips and said, the Yen race is famous for being a fence-sitter. At the beginning, they submitted to the human race. Later, when they saw that the demon race had gained the upper hand, they submitted to the demon race. The demon clan promised that if they occupied the immortal essence continent, they would hand it over to the Yen clan. Therefore, the Yen clan stupidly left their original place of living and ran to the immortal essence continent. In the end, the demon clan suffered a great defeat, and the Yen clan was driven to the far west. Damn it, this originally had nothing to do with me. I didn't expect that half of my soul was set up by that bastard. That's why I was imprisoned here to release the Yen Qi for them. You've been talking for a long time. Where did the nightmare race originally live? How did you release the nightmare Qi? The place where the nightmare race originally lived was called the Dark Continent. They couldn't see the sun all year round, but the nightmare Qi was abundant. It was like the spiritual Qi in the immortal essence continent. They could cultivate anytime and anywhere. Unfortunately, the nightmare race wasn't satisfied and insisted on occupying the immortal essence continent. It serves them right that their nightmare Qi is getting harder and harder to cultivate. Meng Yanshou gloated. Get to the point. How did you release the nightmare aura? The Meng Yanshou said coyly, the result of humans' greed, insidiousness, and other negative emotions. The nightmare aura of the Dark Continent is also born from the negative emotions of all living things in the world. Therefore, I was able to establish a connection with the Dark Continent and occasionally create some nightmare aura. Yun Chuzhou looked at the coyly Meng Yanshou with amusement. You're not a good person to begin with and you're actually embarrassed. Meng Yanshou said indignantly, although I'm not a good person, I'm still better than the Yen clan. I'm just a fence-sitter, and they even imprisoned me. They deserve to never return to the Dark Continent. Bah! Yun Chuzhou was stunned. Since they can come out from the Dark Continent, why can't they return? Meng Yanshou covered its mouth with its claws. You can't tell me, you can't tell me. Yun Chuzhou had seen the merman tell those remnant souls about the painful situation after that, so she didn't force Meng Yanshou. After all, she wasn't a member of the Nightmare Clan, so it had nothing to do with her whether they went back or not. The most important thing now was to let Meng Yanshou go first, and then think of a way to leave the territory of the Nightmare Clan. However, there were guards outside. If she went out like this, she definitely wouldn't be able to destroy the round platform. Therefore, Yun Chuzhou said to Meng Yanshou, we've a dream for them. Tell them to stand at the door so that I can destroy the round stage and let you out. The Meng Yanshou looked at Yun Chuzhou pitifully. Little fairy, if I could weave a dream here, would have released myself long ago. Yun Chuzhou, she was also confused. That's right. If the Meng Yanshou could weave a dream, it would have run away by itself long ago. How could it stay here and be sullen? Yun Chuzhou frowned and thought for a moment, then said, "Curly hair, do you know the ancient language of the Yan clan?" The Meng Yanshou said rather smugly, "No." Yun Chuzhou, "Fuck, if you don't know, why are you showing off? What's wrong with you? Since you don't understand their ancient language, why are they chanting the Zhu Wan and using the ancient language?" Yun Chuzhou asked in confusion. "They are just pretending. They are just showing off their knowledge." "Bah!" Meng Yanshou said disdainfully. Yun Chuzhou, it seemed that Meng Yanshou's resentment towards the Yan race was unusually deep. Yun Chuzhou rolled her eyes. "It's fine even if you don't speak the ancient language. You know how to play tricks, don't you? Tell them to go to the main hall in front and kneel down to recite the blessing. Then they'll take the opportunity to destroy your statue at the back." Meng Yanshou said, "I'm good at this. Otherwise, I would have been bored to death all these years. Fortunately, I'm smart enough to trick them into offering sacrifices to me when they have nothing to do. Then, I can enter the dream of the sacrifice and take a stroll. Little fairy, let me tell you, I saw a lot of fun things in their dreams, such as secret trysts and visiting fragrant pink houses." "Shut up. Hurry up and get down to business." Yun Chuzhou kicked Meng Yanshou, and Meng Yanshou was instantly kicked to the corner of the wall. For the first time, Meng Yanshou felt that its host body was not that good. It was too weak. The little girl could kick it away with one kick. The Meng Yanshou did not dare to disobey He Xinjiu, hence, it pretended to be in a bad mood and shouted to the outside, "This sacred beast is in a bad mood. All of you, scram to the main hall in front and recite the blessing. If one of you does not go, this sacred beast will not release the nightmare Qi in the future." The people of the Meng Yanshou believed in the sacred beast without a doubt. How could they doubt whether the Meng Yanshou was telling the truth or not? They immediately ran to the main hall in front and recited the blessing. Yun Chuzhou opened a crack in the door of the sacrificial temple and looked outside. When she realized that there were indeed no guards, she opened the door softly and slipped out. As for the Meng Yanshou, it wanted to come out, but it was blocked by an invisible barrier. It could not come out at all. Yun Chuzhou carefully went around to the back. When she passed by the waterfall, a question flashed through Yun Chuzhou's mind. What was going on with this bath? She would have to ask Curly Hair in a while. When Yun Chuzhou rushed to the round platform, she was troubled. She couldn't use the talisman seal in the far west, so how could she destroy this statue? If she used heavenly lightning to strike, the commotion would be too big, and it would inevitably attract the guards in front. If she used a large kitchen knife to strike, there would also be a big commotion. It was better to use a small flame to burn it. Therefore, He Xinjiu the small flame discussed for a while and released the small flame. The small flame started to burn the statue of Meng Yanshou. Very soon, the statue separated from the disc below. The guy's eyes lit up. So the disc was the array disc. It was filled with top-grade spirit stones. Of course, the guy didn't stand on ceremony. He put all the top-grade spirit stones into his storage ring. Then, he let the small flame burn the array disc to a pulp. Only then did he walk toward the sacrificial temple. Just as he reached the waterfall, he saw a wind-blade rabbit hopping over. Yun Chuzhou was completely speechless. This was the first time she had seen a wind-blade rabbit hopping around so happily. If she gave it a pair of wings, it would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun. Little fairy, I knew it. You are the man that I have been waiting for 10,000 years. I will be your beast from now on. You must be responsible for me. Yun Chuzhou grabbed the two rabbit ears of the Meng Yanshou and said, "Speak in human language. By the way, let me ask you, why do all the people who come here to absorb the nightmare aura have to go to the waterfall to bathe? The eyes of the Meng Yanshou flickered. Clean. I am a baby who likes to be clean. I don't like the stench of those people. Speak in human language. The Meng Yanshou coughed dryly. Ahem, actually, this is because when they bathe, it is inevitable that they will think of something. When I enter their dreams, I will be able to see many interesting scenes. Yun Chujiu, no wonder this damned curly hair had said all those messy things about the powder house. It had all come from this. This curly hair with impure thoughts. The nightmare beast obviously felt a little embarrassed as well. It coughed twice and said, that, little fairy, am also bored. Who would be bored after being locked up for such a long time? Let's think of a way to get out. Meng Yanshou said. Yun Chujiu pondered for a moment and asked Meng Yanshou, how long does it take for you to fabricate a dream? How wide is the range of radiation? Meng Yanshou rolled his eyes guiltily. Little fairy, you also know that I'm half a soul and I've been locked up for a long time, speak human language. In short, that's right. My current ability has deteriorated a lot, and it'll need a long time to recover after using it once. However, it's not a problem for me to let those people in front fall into a dream. Yun Chujiu pondered for a moment. Then, weave a dream for them and let them think that the sacred beast has shown its spirit. Tell them that the nightmare race has offended the heavens by attacking the human race, which is why the round stage was destroyed by the heavenly fire. The sacred beast has also left the nightmare race. The nightmare beast immediately began to weave a dream. When Yun Chujiu arrived at the sacrificial hall in front, she discovered that everyone was kneeling on the ground in a daze. It was obvious that they had fallen into a dream. Princess Pian Pian and the others were not among them. They had probably already left the land of Meng Yanshou. Yun Chujiu felt that now was the best time for her to escape. Meng Yanshou had already woven the dream. Most of these people thought that she had already been eaten by Meng Yanshou and would not be searching for her. Her transfiguration pill had already reached its expiry date. If she slightly changed her original appearance, they might not be able to discover her. This fellow was also a little reluctant to part with the remaining disguise pill. It would be better to save it for a critical time in the future. Yun Chujiu thought of this and slipped out of the land of the Nightmare Lord. She recalled the route she took and slipped away along the direction of the vast desert. She left in a good mood. The Nightmare clan was in an uproar. When the guards told the Nightmare Lord about what they had dreamt of, the Nightmare Lord immediately fainted. The land of the Nightmare ancestors had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, but it had actually been destroyed by him. The four great families had always been eyeing the position of the Nightmare King with covetous eyes, and now they were even more aggressive. It was because He Xinjiu had said in the dream that it was because the nightmare race had attacked the human race that the heavens had become angry. Aog, who had suggested attacking the human race, had been the first to bear the brunt, and had become a sinner of the nightmare race. The four great clans had joined forces to force the king and the queen to be imprisoned, forcing Aog to retreat to the far west and hand over military power. The four great clans did not have the ambition to conquer the human race for the time being, so their current goal was only to seize control of the nightmare race. As for how they would split the spoils, that was a matter for another day. Aog was meditating on the battlefield, trying to break through the human race's defensive line. Who would have thought that He Xinjiu would set fire to the backyard, and it was that kind of blazing demonic fire. Aog had no choice but to lead the Nightmare Race army back to the territory of the Nightmare Race's influence. No matter what, he had to settle the internal matters of the Nightmare Race first. The four great clans also held a portion of military power in their hands, and so, the two sides began to fight. After disguising herself, He Xinjiu had originally wanted to leave the territory of the Nightmare Race's influence. Who would have thought that this fire was too fierce? The borders of the nightmare race had become a battlefield, and this fellow still had no way of leaving. This fellow really regretted it. If he had known earlier, he would not have cheated that farting crown prince. Was this considered throwing a stone at his own feet? Hei Xinjiu cursed in her heart. Alliance Master Yen and his group of old fogies actually didn't take advantage of the infighting in the nightmare race to take advantage of the situation. She really didn't know whether to call them gentlemen or cowards. She could even guess what Alliance Master Yen and the others were thinking. Anyway, the nightmare race had already retreated back into their sphere of influence. As long as they didn't let the nightmare race invade again, it would be fine. However, what Hei Xinjiu was more concerned about now was the frequent battles at the border. How could she leave the territory of the Yen clan? Hei Xinjiu had no way to leave for the time being. She could only find an inn to stay. This fellow lived in seclusion and was very sweet-mouthed. He did not cause any trouble. After these few days of contact, Yun Chujiu discovered that the Yen clan people were actually not much different from the humans. Their way of life was basically the same as how they lived in the world. What fence-sitters and whatnot, it was just a decision made by the higher-ups. The nightmare race people below just followed orders. Therefore, Yun Chujia's initial hatred towards the nightmare race had calmed down quite a bit. As for the nightmare beast, other than eating all day long, it would read the storybooks that Yun Chujiu had collected. It read them with great interest and would even discuss the plot with Hei Xinjiu when it was free. Little fairy, you are a woman who has married several husbands. Do you have a storybook where a man marries many women? It is best to describe it vividly. It would be even better if there are illustrations. Meng Yanxia's eyes were originally red, now, it was even redder after staying up all night. Yun Chujiu kicked it to a corner. Get lost. You impure curly hair. Meng Yanxiu was sullen. Why was it impure? He allowed her to see what she liked, but he couldn't see what he liked. No matter what, he hadn't married yet. What was wrong with learning first? Bad silver. Hei Xinjiu was venting her anger. She was burning with anxiety and wanted to return to the primordial chaos sect as soon as possible. This fellow was afraid that Di Baiming would find out that she had meddled with the Nightmare clan after coming out of the mystic realm and punish her. On this day, Hei Xinjiu took out the map of the Yen clan. After looking around, she discovered something. This fellow discovered that other than the area of battle, there was a small area that could be left from the far west. She could not help but wonder, why was there no one guarding that area? She asked indirectly and only then did she know that that was the famous poisonous miasma area. The humans and the Yen clan had no way of passing through it. Therefore, neither the humans nor the Yen clan had any intention of going there. Hei Xinjiu was delighted. Other people were afraid of the poisonous gas, but she wasn't. She could just leave from there and take a detour to leave the Yen clan's territory. The eyes of the Meng Yanxiu flickered. Little fairy, you'd better not take the risk. That poisonous miasma area has existed since the beginning. No one has ever been able to pass through it. You'll be courting death if you go. Curly hair, you don't know that. I'm not afraid of poison. The more poisonous, the better. Yun Chujiu was too happy to notice Meng Yanxia's flickering eyes. Meng Yanxiu found all kinds of reasons again, such as the stench, the lack of food, and the detours, but none of them could stop Yun Chujia's determination to leave the poisonous miasma area. Curly hair, you're so strong in stopping me from passing through the poisonous miasma area. You're not hiding anything from me, are you? Yun Chujiu finally noticed that something was wrong with Meng Yanxiu. The Meng Yanxiu shook its head like a rattledrum. I'm just worried about your safety. I'm your beast now. If anything happens to you, I won't be able to live. Yun Chujio saw that the Meng Yanshou didn't seem to be lying, so she believed it and took a detour to the miasma area. The Meng Yanshou felt as if it had seen a ghost. It had never expected that the little girl with a black heart would go to the miasma area. Oh God, it wasn't to be blamed for this. It hadn't said anything. A few days later, Hei Shinjiu arrived at the edge of the miasma area. Even at the edge of the miasma district, there were no activities of the Yen clansmen. There were only some low shrubs on the ground. The miasma district in the distance was shrouded in white mist. There was no movement at all. It was dead silent. Curly hair, are there any demonic beasts in this miasma district? Yun Chujio asked Meng Yanshou, who was still diligently reading the script in the spiritual beast bag. I've already said that it's the miasma district. Of course there are no demonic beasts. Not to mention demonic beasts, there aren't even demonic insects. There are poisonous plants inside. Little fairy, don't be stubborn. Don't go in. Let's think of another way to leave the far west region. Yun Chujio ignored him and walked into the poisonous miasma zone. The poisonous miasma zone was indeed filled with poisonous plants. Yun Chujio recognized some of them, but she had never seen some in the ancient books. Here, it was like a paradise for Guai Chao. The poisonous plants that people avoided were all delicious Guai Chao. Guai Chao kept ordering Yun Chujio to chew and swallow them, and those that could not be eaten would be taken away with their bags. Meng Yanshou's red rabbit eyes widened, "Oh. No wonder this black-hearted little girl wanted to pass through the miasma area. It turned out that she was really not afraid of poison." Meng Yanshou muttered in his heart. It was good that she was not afraid of poison, but she must never encounter such a situation. He felt so stifled in his heart. He clearly knew that he shouldn't have come here, but he couldn't tell the truth. He was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Forget it, let's just read the storybook. Children and grandchildren will have their own fortune. If Yun Chujio knew that this guy was abusing his words, she would probably kick him away. Who the fuck is your son and grandson? Shameless. Yun Chujio picked the poisonous plants and asked Meng Yanshou, "Curly hair, there's nothing here. Isn't there just some poisonous plants? After so many years, no one can pass through here." Meng Yanshou almost vomited blood. Nothing. Do you know that the poisonous plants in your hand right now can kill hundreds of people with just a drop of poison? Do you know that the poisonous fog in this poisonous miasma area can make people bleed to death just by inhaling a little bit? It was easy for you to say that just by standing there. Of course, these were all the inner complaints of Meng Yanshou, but he said flatteringly, "Little fairy, it's not that there's no danger here, but you're too strong. You'd better hurry up and try to get out before dark." Yun Chujio curled her lips. This curly hair was becoming more and more obsequious. At this moment, Yun Chujio noticed a few wisps of black fog drifting in front of her. Yun Chujio was stunned. "Curly hair, why is there a black fog in this white fog?" Meng Yanshou almost spat out a mouthful of blood. What it was afraid of came true. It was over. Was it too late for it to return to the sacrificial temple and become a holy beast? Sob, I regret it. This black-hearted bitch was just unlucky. How could it just happen to bump into her? Yun Chujio saw that Meng Yanshou didn't say anything and asked again. Meng Yanshou could only reply listlessly, I don't know anything." Although Yun Chujio felt that this fellow was hiding something from her, she knew that she would not be able to find out even if she asked, so she decided not to ask it. Anyway, this fellow had always believed that no matter what difficulties he encountered, there would always be a solution. Chapter 2992, Regret for 10,000 Years. Yun Chujio suddenly frowned. Why did this black fog look like a nightmare aura? Wasn't this the miasma area? How could there be a nightmare aura? Although Yun Chujio was puzzled, she still continued to walk forward. Regardless of whether it was a poison aura or a nightmare aura, she would think about it after she got out. After walking for a while, Yun Chujio noticed that the nightmare aura was getting denser. Could it be that the direction she was walking towards was the source of the nightmare aura? Looking at the increasingly denser nightmare aura and the cover of the Meng Yanshou, Yun Chujio had a vague guess. Could it be that the so-called entrance of the Dark Continent was in this poisonous miasma area? No wonder the Meng Yanshou said that the people of the Yen clan could never return. This place was full of poisonous gas, and the people of the Yen clan indeed couldn't enter. Just as Yun Chujio was thinking, she found that there was indeed a black nightmare aura coming out from a cave in the distance, drifting away. Yun Chujio's heart skipped a beat. Previously, Meng Yanshou had said that it could establish a connection with the Dark Continent. What a load of crap. It turned out that Meng Yanshou had established a connection with the nightmare aura in this toxic miasma area. Yun Chujio walked to the hole and took a closer look. She saw that it was a hole that could allow one person to enter. It was so deep that one could not see the bottom. Nightmare aura was constantly coming out from it. So, this was the barrier that should lead to the Dark Continent. No wonder the nightmare race could still cultivate nightmare chi in the far west. Although the amount of nightmare chi in this poisonous miasma area was small, it was better than nothing. When this fellow thought of this, bad water started to surface. If she blocked this place, wouldn't the nightmare race be unable to cultivate nightmare chi anymore? Let's see if they can still show off. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. The more this fellow thought about it, the more proud he became. Thus, he took out a large rock from his storage ring and covered the entrance of the cave tightly. TSK, my little Ninth Alliance master is indeed the nemesis of the nightmare race. The nightmare race will no longer have the nightmare aura. They will definitely not dare to attack the human race anymore. The world will be at peace. Little fairy, since the nightmare aura has been covered, let's leave this place quickly. The nightmare beast urged Meng Yanshou. Curly hair, I haven't settled the score with you yet. Previously, you said that you were in contact with the Dark Continent. What bullshit is that? So it turns out that you are in contact with the nightmare aura here. Ah, help. Meng Yanshou sighed. It knew it. This was great. It probably wouldn't be able to return to its original form anymore. As it turned out, just as Yun Chujio was scolding Meng Yanshou, the stone that was originally covering the entrance of the cave was flipped over by a wave of air. Moreover, there was a huge suction force from within, and Unlucky 9 was sucked in. After an unknown amount of time, Unlucky 9 fell on her butt. When this fellow opened his eyes, he saw that she seemed to have fallen into a huge bird's nest. There was a blood-red full moon in the sky. No matter how he looked at it, it looked extremely demonic. Hey, curly hair, could it be that I've been teleported to the Dark Continent? Little fairy, I told you not to enter the poison miasma area, but you didn't listen. I told you to leave quickly, but you didn't listen. Now, it's fine. The people of the Dark Continent's Meng Yanshou have all left. This place is now filled with nightmare beasts. Just wait for your death. The nightmare beast said unhappily. You curly hair, you still want to teach me a lesson? You've provoked me, so I'll confiscate your speech book. I'll let you have so much free time that you'll bang your head against the wall. Little fairy, a peerless beauty, a stunningly talented little fairy. I was just joking with you just now. You're so powerful, how could those nightmare beasts be your match? We can definitely leave this place. Although the nightmare beast said that, it felt as if it had seen a ghost in its heart. Meng Yanshou's heart was filled with regret. Damn it, if it had known earlier, it would have obediently become the nightmare race's sacred beast. At least it would have been able to look at those people's dreams. Sob, regret for 10,000 years. Chapter 29-23, Open Your Rabbit Eyes Wide. Yun Chuzhou didn't pay attention to that idiot Meng Yanshou. She raised her head and looked around. There was nothing but the moon in the sky. Then, the problem came. Where was the teleportation array from before? How was she going to return? Could it be that she would become the only human in this dark continent in the future? Curly hair, the teleportation array from before has disappeared. How are we going to leave this place? Meng Yanshou said listlessly, I've never been to this dark continent. I don't know how to leave either. It said that it was the demon race who helped the Yanshou people to leave. Yun Chuzhou didn't have much hope at first, so she wasn't too surprised to hear Meng Yanshou say that. She looked around and found 3 bird eggs and some feathers in the bird nest. Since there were birds here, there shouldn't be any restrictions on flying. Thus, this fellow took out a chopping board and flew out of the bird's nest unsteadily. When this fellow was about to leave, he had originally wanted to steal a bird egg. However, after thinking for the sake of unnecessary trouble, he had only kept the few feathers into his storage ring. This fellow looked around in midair. This place seemed to be within a mountain range. However, it made sense. Since there were no more nightmare clansmen, their territory was naturally occupied by the nightmare beasts. They didn't know if the original city of the nightmare clansmen was still there or not. Perhaps they could find some clues from there. After flying for 3 whole days, they encountered a few nightmare beasts along the way. However, those nightmare beasts probably hadn't seen such food before, or they felt that the food was too small. In short, they didn't attack He Xinjiu. On this day, He Xinjiu was sitting on the chopping board, happily eating wild fruits. Suddenly, her eyes widened, and she pulled Meng Yanshou out of the spiritual beast bag. Curly hair, open your rabbit eyes and take a look. What's that down there? Didn't you say that there were only nightmare beasts here? What's that? Meng Yanshou rubbed his red eyes with his claws. It was actually a member of the nightmare race down there. How could there be a member of the nightmare race here? Didn't they say that they had gone to the immortal Yuan continent back then? Little fairy, I've only heard about it, so it's inevitable that there will be some discrepancies. It's good that there are people. Perhaps they know where the teleportation array is. Meng Yanshou said in a fawning manner. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. Yun Chuzhou rolled her eyes. No matter what, she had to first make up an identity to sneak in, and then slowly plot her way in. The people of the Yan clan below had obviously seen Yun Chuzhou as well. After all, what they had seen before were all people riding swords. This was the first time they had seen a chopping board. Curly hair, aren't you able to seduce the Yan Qi? When you need it later, you can make a few strands for me. Do you hear me? Meng Yanshou obediently agreed. Only then did Yun Chuzhou order the chopping board to fall to the ground. Yun Chuzhou did not dare to speak first. If these people were speaking in the ancient language of the Yan clan, she would be exposed. One of the elders smiled and said, ##%. Yun Chuzhou, what she was afraid of came true. What should she do now? This fellow was quick-witted. He used his hand to point at his throat and then pointed at his ear. He used his hand to gesture a few times, indicating that he could not speak or hear. Those people took a look. It turned out to be a deaf-mute. How pitiful. Those people looked at the clothes on Yun Chuzhou and shook their heads. This little girl was probably very poor. Even poor people like them wore much better clothes than her. Actually, the clothes on He Xinjia's body were originally good. However, for the sake of picking wild fruits, not only was her face dirty, but her clothes were also tattered and dirty. Before she had the time to change, she saw these people. The old man said a few words to the others, then waved at Yun Chuzhou and made a hand gesture to follow them. He Xinjiu couldn't ask for more. She nodded her head gratefully and followed these people out of the valley. After following those people out of the valley, Yun Chujio first arrived at a town. It turned out that these people had sold some of the nightmare beasts they had hunted to shops in exchange for some nightmare stones. Then, they used the nightmare stones to buy some rice that looked similar to spiritual rice and some daily necessities. Only then did Yun Chujio remember a question. Those nightmare clansmen from the immortal Yuan continent also had nightmare stones. Where did they get their nightmare stones from? Meng Yanshou pursed his lips. Isn't it simple? They took it with them when they left the Dark Continent. Yun Chujio thought that it made sense. When those people left, they naturally took away all the valuable things, and the nightmare stone was the first to bear the brunt of it. Presumably, the nightmare stone mines that had been discovered at that time had all been swept away. Yun Chujio also discovered a problem. There were more men and fewer women in the Yen clan on the streets. The men were almost twice as many as the women. Even the not-so-good-looking women from the Yen clan were fawned over by a few men. Yun Chujio's heart skipped a beat. No wonder these people accepted her so readily. Could it be that they were planning to marry her off? After all, there seemed to be fewer women here. Yun Chujio weighed the pros and cons in her heart and decided to follow these people. After all, not only was she not familiar with the roads, but she was also not fluent in the language. These people's spiritual powers were not very high. If they had any bad ideas, she could totally deal with them. Therefore, Yun Chujio continued to follow those people out of the town without batting an eyelid. After making several turns, they arrived at a village. Soon, some old people and children came out of the village. Occasionally, a few women could be seen, but each of them was like a young lady from a big family. They were extremely arrogant. Because they had walked for a long time, Yun Chujio's face was covered in sweat. She took out a handkerchief and wiped her face. When those women saw Yun Chujio's appearance, they clearly showed hostility. They asked the old man who brought Yun Chujio back in a questioning tone. After the old man said a few words, those women revealed gloating expressions, then they twisted their waists and left. Although Yun Chujio couldn't understand the old man's words, she guessed that the old man said that she couldn't speak and couldn't hear, so those women had a sense of superiority and left. Only then did Yun Chujio realize that the appearance of the Yen clansmen here was far inferior to those people from the immortal Yuan continent, which was why those women showed hostility towards her. After those women left, some young men pointed at Yun Chujio as if they were criticizing her. In the end, they even started to fight. Hei Shinjiu stood at the side and watched coldly. Was this the decision of her ownership? Damn it, then let's see who is unlucky enough to win. The last burly man won the final victory. He walked in front of Yun Chujio with a big grin on his face. He mumbled and then reached out to pull Yun Chujio's hand. Yun Chujio waved her hand repeatedly and pretended to be shy. The burly man laughed and mumbled a few more words, then motioned for Yun Chujio to follow him. A faint light flashed across Yun Chujio's eyes. The exciting journey to the Dark Continent should start from this idiot. Yun Chujio followed the burly man to a courtyard at the west end of the village. It was obvious that he was the only one in the burly man's house. The burly man directly brought Hei Shinjiu into the inner room. The burly man's mind was filled with lust. It was not easy for him to finally get married. Although he was deaf and dumb, he was still good-looking. When the big man was about to enjoy the beauty, he saw the beauty smirk, and then nothing. When the burly man woke up, he found that his spiritual power had already been restrained. The little girl was holding a large kitchen knife and sharpening it. The sizzling sound was simply hair-raising. The burly man instinctively wanted to scream, but he realized that he couldn't make a sound, and his body couldn't move. After a series of friendly communication, the burly man finally understood that he was not marrying a beauty, but a fucking jinx. Moreover, he also understood that it was not that the beauty could not hear or speak, but that she could not understand their words. "Fairy, please spare my life. Fairy, please spare my life." The burly man suddenly spoke in human language. Yun Chujio was stunned. "You can speak human language?" The burly man was like a dog that was bawling. He was clearly speaking human language before, all right. After Yun Chujio interrogated him for a while, she finally understood the general situation. Back then, when the demon race tricked the nightmare race to move to the immortal origin continent, the royal family of the nightmare race and the nobles naturally followed them. The remaining poor or ugly nightmare race women were not taken away. Yun Chujio ridiculed in her heart. They abandoned them just because they didn't look good. The Yen clan was really a strange species that looked at faces. The remaining Yen clan people first coexisted peacefully. Gradually, some of them became ambitious. As time passed, they formed the royal family, the nobles, and the commoners. Moreover, the Yen clan that stayed back then were mostly men, which resulted in a situation where there were more men and fewer women. Only a small number of the nightmare race members understood the human language, and even fewer of the remaining people understood the human language. The reason why the burly man knew the human language was because he was originally a noble. Later, when his family caused trouble, he ended up in this village. This was the reason why he lived alone. "What's your name?" "Go air." The burly man said an ancient nightmare language. "Dog or dog too?" "Whatever, I'll call you dog too from now on." The burly man, "Little fairy, what I said just now is the language of the nightmare race. If it is expressed in human language, my family name is Sha, and I'm Xingjio, so I'm called Shajio." The burly man did not want to be called dog too. Little did he know that it would have been better if he had not said that. As soon as he said that, Hei Xingjio kicked him in the face. "You can either let me kill you or call me dog too. It's your choice." But Face, who had just come out of the oven, did not know that he had accidentally stepped on Hei Xingjio's cat tail. He could only comfort himself. After all, most people did not understand the human language, so he would just call him Butt Face. Yun Chujio understood the general knowledge here and asked about the teleportation array indirectly, but Face shook his head repeatedly. "Little fairy, this is a secret of the Dark Continent. How would I know? If you want to know, you will have to ask the royal family or the nobles." Yun Chujio thought about it and agreed, so she said to Butt Face, "Start teaching me your words now. When I learn it, I'll let you go." Butt Face felt bitter in his heart. Did he learn it? Oh God, how could he learn it in less than 2 or 3 years? He was really unlucky. If he knew that this was a freaking jinx, he would have lost to those people. But now, not only did he get Butt Face's name, but he was also trapped here to teach her the language of the nightmare race. What a fucking dog. Although Butt Face was unwilling, he had no choice but to use the pen and paper that Yun Chujio gave him to teach Yun Chujio the ancient language of the nightmare race. After teaching her, Butt Face was dumbfounded. This person was fucking inhuman. He was simply a monster. Butt Face was shocked to find that the little girl in front of him was able to learn it as soon as she taught it. She was able to draw inferences from one example. What, 3 years or 2 years? She would probably be able to communicate daily in 2 days. 5 days later, Yun Chujio had almost mastered the ancient language of the nightmare race. Other than some unfamiliar words, she could basically break away from being addressed as illiterate. Butt Face, come with me. What can you do in this small village? You were a noble in the past, so why are you reduced to a small villager now? Come, follow me. I'll take you to fly with me. He Xinjiu started to trick Buttface. How could Buttface resist He Xinjiu's trick? He was tricked by He Xinjiu and became her follower. He Xinjiu left the village with Buttface. Before Buttface left, he said, "Little fairy, you are too good-looking. It is inevitable that you will be targeted by the nobles. It is better for you to make yourself ugly." Yun Chuzhou thought about it and agreed. It was better to make things less troublesome. Hence, she made her face sallow and drew a figure-8 eyebrow. She smiled at Buttface and said, "Buttface, is this ugly enough?" Buttface fell to the ground. He thought to himself that even if the Nightmare Clan lacked women, no one would want this honor for free. It was too damn ugly. When the people in the village saw He Xinjiu behind Buttface, they were all dumbfounded. What did Goer do? How did he turn a delicate beauty into a hag? 5 days later, Yun Chuzhou and Buttface arrived at the capital of the Nightmare Clan, which was also the capital where the royal and noble families of the Nightmare Clan gathered. As soon as she entered the city, He Xinjiu noticed a phenomenon. There were more men than women in other places, but why were more than half of the people on the street women? Moreover, the women were all shy and had obviously dressed up meticulously. What were they doing? Shengzun, I didn't expect that the lord of the Nightmare Clan would finally come back after waiting for so many years. Yeah, I thought that we had been abandoned. I never thought that the Shengzun would not forget us and return. I heard that the Shengzun is very handsome. If I could meet the Shengzun, I would have died in peace. Yun Chuzhou was stunned. Shengzun. Pan DN0VLCM Erguzi, who is the Shengzun? Little fairy, according to legend, the Yen clan members who left back then were brought out of the Dark Continent by the Shengzun. A few days ago, there was a rumor that the Shengzun had returned to the Dark Continent and is now living in the Imperial Palace. Yun Chujia's heart skipped a beat. Curly Hair had said that it was the demon who had brought the Yen tribesmen out of the Dark Continent. Could it be that the so-called Shengzun was a demon? However, no matter what, that Shengzun definitely had a way to leave the Dark Continent. It would be best if she could think of a way to get close to that Shengzun. However, that Shengzun was in the Imperial Palace. How could she get close to him? Just as Yun Chuzhou was worrying, a team of guards walked over. The leader was an old woman. When the old woman saw Yun Chuzhou, she immediately nodded with satisfaction. It's her. Yun Chuzhou was dumbfounded. What did she mean by it's her? Granny, who are you? Where are you taking me? He Xinjiu asked with a trembling voice. Of course, she was speaking the ancient language of the Yen clan. Our princess is going to choose a few new palace maids to serve her. Your looks are just right. Cut the crap. It's your fortune to be able to serve our princess in the Imperial Palace. The old woman said arrogantly. He Xinjiu was ecstatic. Granny, really? I can serve the princess in the Imperial Palace. I'm really grateful to your ancestors. The old woman. No matter how the old woman listened, she felt that Yun Chujia's words were strange. However, it was not easy to find such an ugly person. If her words were not pleasant to hear, then so be it. Grandma, my brother is strong and strong. Can you let him enter the palace as a guard? Don't say that you can't make the decision. I can see that you are someone who can speak to the princess. Such a small matter is simply a small matter to you. The old woman was almost lost by He Xinjia's words, so she brought Buttface along with her. Buttface was dumbfounded. He had thought that the little girl of He Xinjiu was just boasting. He didn't expect that he would become a guard of the Imperial Palace the moment he entered the city of Han. This was even more mysterious than a dream. Buttface's thoughts were quickly interrupted by the shrieks of a group of women. It turned out that the women had found out that the old woman was actually choosing palace maids. They pushed themselves toward the old woman without caring about their own safety. "Grandma, choose me to enter the palace as well. As long as I can enter the palace, I can even be a rough palace maid washing clothes." "That's right, Grandma, the one you chose is too ugly. If you're not careful, you might scare the Lord. If I'm beautiful, then choose me. Grandma, choose me. I don't want a monthly salary. As long as I can enter the palace and take a look at the Lord, I'll die without any regrets." "Shengzun," said the old woman, snorted, "you want to see the Lord? Is the Lord someone you can see? Get out of the way. If you don't get out of the way, you will be thrown into prison." Hearing the old woman's words, the women all moved aside. However, their jealous eyes stabbed at He Xinjiu like knives. This ugly freak was really lucky. She had actually been chosen to enter the palace. It was really unfair. He Xinjiu curled her lips. She could roughly guess why the old woman had chosen her. It was because she was ugly. There was a high chance that the princess adored the Lord. With this ugly freak acting as a foil, she could become a fairy even if she looked ordinary. Yun Chujiu followed the old woman to the Nightmare Clan's imperial palace. Along the way, He Xinjia's small mouth was as sweet as honey. She coaxed the old woman until her old face looked like a flower. But Face thought to himself, this little devil can literally talk a dead person alive. He was completely convinced. The scale of the imperial palace of the Yen clan was huge. Moreover, it was obvious that it was not newly built. It was highly likely that it was left behind by the Yen clan's people in the past. Yun Chujiu followed the old woman to a palace. The plaque on it read, "Forget Worry Palace." Before entering the door, the old woman whispered, "When you see Princess Wang Yu in a while, be smart. Otherwise, I won't be able to protect you." "Nanny Chi, don't worry. I know what to do," He Xinjiu said gratefully. The old woman, who was also Nanny Chi, sent a palace maid in to report to the princess. Yun Chujiu glanced around and found that the palace maids in Wang Yu Palace all looked very ordinary, which further confirmed her guess. She stood out because she was ugly. A moment later, the palace maid signaled for the two of them to enter. After Yun Chujiu entered, she caught a glimpse of a woman sitting on the main seat from the corner of her eye. She looked slightly better than the average person, but she was dressed exquisitely and beautifully. This was probably the Princess Wang Yu that the old woman had mentioned. Yun Chujiu bowed to Princess Wang Yu according to the old woman's instructions, and then obediently stopped talking. Princess Wang Yu sized up Yun Chujiu's appearance and nodded in satisfaction. "Nanny Chi, you did well. This palace maid fits my requirements very well. From now on, you shall be called Ru Hua. You may leave first." Ru Hua. He Xinjia's heart was like a beeping dog. Could it be that she had recently suffered retribution because she had given such a name to the cute idiots? To kill little Jiao and Ruhua at the same time was simply too tragic, wasn't it? Although this fellow was extremely unwilling, he still said respectfully, "Ruhua, thank you for the name, princess. I'll take my leave." After Yun Chujiu left, Princess Wang Yu coldly snorted. "Nanny Chi, the Lord still doesn't want to see me. I've thought of many ways to get close to him, but it's all to no avail. I'm the princess of the Yen clan, but I can't even see him once. I really want to force my way in." Nanny Chi's expression changed. "Princess, you absolutely mustn't. Have you forgotten? A few days ago, His Highness the Crown Prince wanted to force his way into the Sacred Hall. In the end, his feet had just stepped into the Sacred Hall when he was sent flying. His Highness the Crown Prince is still recuperating on the bed. That's because royal brother is a man. I don't believe that a delicate girl like me would be treated so rudely, Princess Wang Yu said angrily. This, Princess, I heard that Xingzun has a very bad temper. The people who serve him are sent flying every few days, and some even lose their lives. So you'd better not offend Xingzun. Besides, Xingzun lives in our imperial palace. We'll meet sooner or later. Why don't you go to the vicinity of the sacred palace often? Maybe Xingzun will come out one day. Besides, even if he doesn't meet Xingzun, he'll definitely be moved by your sincerity, Grandma Qi advised. Princess Wang Yu nodded. Alright, this is the only way. I'll take that Ru Hua to the vicinity of the sacred palace tomorrow. Prepare a few sets of green clothes for her. I think they'll be more suitable for her. Okay. Granny Qi agreed. She thought to herself that her big red lips and the green palace-made uniform were simply too ugly. After Granny Qi came out, she called He Xinjiu to the side. Ru Hua, the princess will bring you around the temple tomorrow. Be smart and don't offend the princess. Also, these palace-made uniforms are yours. Yun Chujia's eyes twitched when she saw the green palace-maid's uniforms in Nanny Qi's hands. Was this the rhythm of a match between red and green? Nanny Qi lowered her voice again and said, Little girl, I think you're quite pleasing to the eye. Let me remind you that if you don't want to be implicated, you must stop the princess from forcefully breaking into the sacred hall. Otherwise, the princess will not recover, and neither will you. Yun Chuzhou nodded her head gratefully and didn't ask further. She didn't need to ask to guess that it was nothing more than Princess Wang Yu's unrequited love for her. Perhaps because He Xinjia's appearance was too ugly, the palace maids of Wang Yu Palace didn't push her out. In addition, this fellow had a sweet mouth, so he quickly found out about most of the matters. The Lord had arrived at the Yan clan's imperial palace about 2 months ago. As for what the Lord was here for, they weren't too sure. They had never seen Xingzun's appearance before. It was said that Xingzun usually wore a mask. However, Xingzun's demeanor of looking down at the world was like a natural noble aura. Everyone who saw Xingzun could not help but want to submit to him. Yun Chuzhou chimed in. She cursed in her heart. Pooey. What kind of demeanor of looking down on the world? It was like a natural noble aura. It was nothing more than the pressure brought about by their high spiritual power. And she's wearing a mask. Obviously, she's too ashamed to face anyone. What the hell is this Xingzun? Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. The next day, Princess Wang Yu brought He Xinjiu and a few palace maids to the vicinity of the sacred palace. Princess Wang Yu was quite satisfied with Yun Chujia's red and green style. She asked the other palace maids to stand back and let Yun Chujiu serve her. Yun Chujiu looked at the sacred palace not far away while dealing with Princess Wang Yu. She didn't see anything special about it. It was just that it was a little more majestic. It didn't look any different from an ordinary palace. Princess Wang Yu was calm at first, but she soon became impatient. If you keep walking around like this, when will you be able to see the Lord? I will barge in today. I don't believe that the Lord would really have the heart to slap me away. Xingzun said. Yun Chujia's eyes twitched. It didn't matter if Xingzun was courting death, but if Xingzun was beaten to a pulp, she wouldn't have a chance to get close to the Lord. Therefore, He Xinjiu rolled her eyes and said, Princess, the gate of the sacred palace can block your sight, but it can't block the sound. Why don't you play a zither or sing a song? Maybe you can lure the Lord out. Princess Wang Yu felt that what Yun Chujiu said made sense, so she began to play the zither outside the sacred hall. Yun Chujiu felt that Princess Wang Yu played really well, but she was probably playing the zither to a cow. Sure enough, Princess Wang Yu sang and played for a long time, but there was no response inside the sacred hall. It was as if she was deaf. Princess Wang Yu immediately vented her anger. Ruhua, since you came up with the idea, you can sing. If you can't sing the Lord out, you don't have to eat dinner tonight. He Xinjia's heart was like a beeping dog. Who did she offend? She didn't know how to sing those lousy songs of the nightmare race either. This fellow had an idea. He translated the lullaby that Di Biming sang for her into the ancient nightmare language and started humming. Princess Wang Yu frowned when she heard that. What nonsense are you singing? Who are you trying to coax to sleep in broad daylight? Men, take him away and give him 10 strokes of the cane. Paen Dan 0 Vel. C0M. Just as He Xinjiu was about to defend herself, the door of the sacred hall opened. Almost everyone was stunned. Did this Yuhua really sing Xingzun out? Everyone's eyes were focused on the man standing at the entrance of the sacred hall. The man was dressed in black and wore a silver mask on his face. Just such a figure was enough to make Princess Wuyo faint from excitement. The corner of Yun Chujia's eyes twitched. However, she had to admit that the so-called lord was indeed somewhat domineering and was on par with Xingzun. This guy narrowed his eyes and took a look. Why did he feel that Xingzun's figure was so similar to Xingzun's? This guy shook his head. She was really confused. How could Xing Ziyuan appear here? Moreover, Gigolo usually wore white clothes, and rarely wore black clothes. Moreover, Gigolo's temperament was arrogant. This lord's arrogance carried a trace of gloom, so it was impossible for him to be a gigolo. At this time, Princess Wang Yu woke up. With an excited trembling voice, she said, Xingzun greets the Lord. Xingzun, since the last time I saw you, I have been secretly in love with you. Today's weather is perfect. Why don't we go to the back garden to admire the flowers? Xingzun coldly glanced at Princess Wang Yu and said, You, get lost. Come here. Everyone was instantly dumbfounded. When the Lord said, You, he was obviously referring to Princess Wang Yu, and she was actually referring to the flowers. Oh my God! So the Lord actually liked this style. If they had known this earlier, they would have also gone green with red. He Xinjiu was dumbfounded. This lord asked her to go to Xingzun. How could her honor attract men? Was there something wrong with Xingzun's eyes? Maybe it was red-green color blindness. Princess Wang Yu could not believe her ears. She pointed at Yun Chuzhou and shouted sharply, Lord, you chose this ugly monster because of me? The Lord did not even look at Princess Wang Yu. He waved his hand and Princess Wang Yu flew out like a kite with a broken string. Yun Chuzhou felt that this scene was strangely familiar. It seemed to be the same when the pretty boy slapped the person away. However, this lord's voice was not the same as the pretty boy's, so it could not be the pretty boy's voice. It was the voice of Xingzun. It was estimated that people with high spiritual power could be so pretentious. No matter what, it was not bad to be able to get close to this lord. Maybe they could find a way to leave. This Xingzun did not look like a demon. However, a demon could also transform. Maybe it was an old demon, so it could not be seen with the naked eye. Of course, this Xingzun could also be a member of the Divine Devil Hall. In any case, he was not a good person. As He Xinjiu had a preconceived idea, she felt that this Xingzun was not pleasing to the eye no matter how she looked at him. However, she still opened her bloody mouth and leaned over, Xingzun, Ruhua salutes you. Xingzun's mouth twitched slightly and he said in a low voice, Get in here. He Xinjiu was angry. Just get in. Get in. She would scare him to death if he got in. Of course, this guy only dared to complain in his heart. He still followed Xingzun into the temple obediently. Looking at Xingzun's back, this guy looked more and more like a gigolo. He called out with his courage, Shengzun, Payan Dan 0 Vel. C0M. The lord in front of him stopped in his tracks. Yun Chujia's little heart was thumping non-stop. Could it be that he was really a gigolo? However, how could a gigolo be the lord of the Yen clan? The lord turned his head and looked at Shengzun with disdain. Not only is he ugly, his brain isn't working. Shut up. Yun Chujio, crazy. Since she was ugly and her brain was not functioning properly, why did he want her to follow him in? Did he want to think of a way to torture her? It did not make sense. She did not offend him. Did the lullaby that she sang offend him? Oh my God, if that was the case, this was really a tragedy caused by a lullaby. The more Hei Shinjio thought about it, the more she felt that things were not going well. She used her spiritual sense to speak to the nightmare beast. Curly hair, if this lord wants to kill me later, you have to weave a dream for him. Do you hear me? Meng Yanshou said with a smile. Meng Yanshou's two rabbit ears drooped as he timidly said, little fairy, I can't afford to offend this person. You'd better not provoke him either. Let's run for our lives. You curly hair, didn't you brag about not wanting anything in front of me? Why are you so afraid of this lord? Is he a human or a demon or some bullshit? Shengzun's voice was filled with fear. Meng Yanshou lowered his voice and said, keep your voice down. Just don't provoke him, or we will all die. Hei Shinjio was so angry that she almost vomited blood. Are you stupid? How could he know that we are communicating with our spiritual senses? How did I save a good-for-nothing like you? You know that, but you refuse to tell me. From today on, I will not take your words. Meng Yanshou mumbled softly, so be it. Anyway, you should stay away from him. I still want to return to my original body. Hei Shinjio cursed Meng Yanshou a few more times. She wondered who this Shengzun was. Even Meng Yanshou was so afraid. Meng Yanshou was an ancient beast after all. He should not be so cowardly. Was this Shengzun really a big shot? However, this Shengzun had lived for at least 10,000 years. Even if he was trash, he was still very powerful after cultivating for such a long time. Just as Hei Shinjio was pondering, Shengzun suddenly stopped in front of her. This idiot bumped into him so hard that his nose almost bled. This idiot cursed in his heart. Crazy. Why did he stop walking? He's crazy. Just as he was cursing in his heart, Shengzun took off his coat. A certain Zhou's heart skipped a beat. Hey, what does that mean? This shitty Shengzun has gone berserk. Could it be that he has ulterior motives outside? Fuck. If he really does that, I will make him a eunuch. Just as Hei Shinjio was feeling uneasy, she saw a flame rising from Shengzun's hand. The flame was black. The black flame instantly burned Shengzun's coat into ashes. Hei Shinjio, this shitty Shengzun obviously burned his clothes because she touched his clothes. Shit. Was he being looked down on? However, it was good. At least he was not plotting against her. He had wanted to show off his spicy noodles, but it seemed like there was no need. This guy was even more certain that the person in front of him was not Di-Biming because Di-Biming had an ice spirit root. This Shengzun obviously had a fire spirit root, and it was a black fire spirit root. What the fuck? After burning his clothes, Shengzun looked at Yun Chujio with disdain, then said to the guards of the temple, prepare hot water, 2 buckets. The guards were already used to Shengzun's concise words, so they immediately prepared 2 big buckets of hot water and placed them at the door of Shengzun's house. They did not have the guts to go in. Shengzun waved his hand, and 2 buckets of hot water floated into the house. Hei Xinjia's heart skipped a beat. Oh my, why did he prepare 2 buckets of hot water? Could it be that this bullshit lord wanted to wash her up and then enjoy her? Fuck, in your dreams. I will make you a eunuch in a while. Just as Hei Shinjio was thinking about it, her body involuntarily flew up and fell into the bathtub. Yes, the one with her head down. Hei Shinjio drank a few mouthfuls of water and finally climbed out of the bathtub. Her clothes were naturally all wet, and the powder and rouge on her face were all ruined. Her entire face was like a dye plate. The Lord stood at the door and raised his eyebrows. Wash it clean, it's so ugly. Shengzun said. Hei Shinjio wiped her face with her hand. Before she could decide whether to lose her temper or what to do, Shengzun had already pushed the door open and left. Don't go near this room, or you will die. Shengzun glanced at the guards of the temple and said gloomily. Those guards nodded their heads like chickens eating rice. What a joke. Unless they had lived enough, they would not go near Shengzun. They could not wait to stay away from Shengzun. They had never seen such a difficult master. However, these guards were also very puzzled. Shengzun usually did not leave the temple. Why did he come back today with such an ugly monster? This Shengzun's taste was a little too strange, right? He actually liked the red and green of a waxen face, 8-shaped eyebrows, and big red lips. If they had known that Shengzun had such a taste, Princess Wang Yu would have probably dressed like this a long time ago, right? Hei Shinjio opened the door and saw that the Lord had entered a room next door. It seemed to be a study room. Shengzun looked at Hei Shinjio. He looked at the bucket of hot water on the floor and released the Meng Yanshou, intending to let it go for a breather. However, Hei Shinjio thought that this curly-haired guy's thoughts were not pure, so he might peep at it. Therefore, she stuffed the Meng Yanshou back into the spirit beast bag and let Xiao Hei out to let it go for a breather at the door. Hei Shinjio took a simple bath, and then she was a little worried. This fellow felt that she was too good-looking. What if she attracted the Lord's attention? If she put on makeup, the Lord would probably let her wash up again. This fellow took the only remaining Shengzun pill to look at it, and swallowed it painfully. He took out a mirror to look at it, and when he saw the extremely ordinary appearance in the mirror, he nodded his head in satisfaction. This way, it was much safer. Hei Shinjio felt that everything was safe, so she pushed the door open and walked out. The guards were all dumbfounded when they saw Yun Chujio. It turned out that she didn't look so ugly after taking off her makeup. At least she wouldn't scare people when she came out in the middle of the night. Hei Shinjio didn't know what to do at the moment. That bullshit lord didn't come out of the room next door and didn't give any orders. So, should she return to the Palace of Forgetfulness or stay here? This guy weighed the pros and cons and decided to stay in the sacred hall. Firstly, that Princess Wang Yu probably hated her to death now. If she returned to the Palace of Forgetfulness, she would be asking for trouble. Secondly, her purpose of entering the palace was to get close to the Lord. Probably only this Lord knew the way to return to the immortal Yuan continent. It was better to think of a way to get closer to Shengzun. Just as Shengzun was thinking about this, he heard someone outside the sacred hall say respectfully, "Shengzun, His Majesty has prepared a banquet. He respectfully invites you to attend it." Although the Shengzun had never attended a banquet before, in order to express his sincerity, Emperor Yan still sent Chief Ji of the Imperial Palace to invite Shengzun on time every day. Chief Ji was already used to it. Every time he finished speaking, there would be no response from the sacred hall at all. It was as if he had not heard anything. He waited for half an hour before he could return to report his mission. General Manager Ji waited for a while. Sure enough, there was no movement. Just as he was about to leave, he heard a low voice from inside, "What time?" General Manager Ji did not react for a while. The attendant beside him tugged at him. Only then did he react. He almost trembled as he said, 5 minutes at night. After General Manager Ji finished speaking, a faint came from inside. General Manager Ji said a few more polite words, like, they'll be waiting for your grand arrival, and so on. Unfortunately, there was no more movement from inside. General Manager Ji did not dare to say anything more when he saw this. With the help of his subordinates, he scrambled back to deliver the letter. After Emperor Yen heard that the Lord had agreed to attend the banquet, he immediately ordered the imperial kitchen to bring out their special skills. They had to ensure that the Lord was satisfied with the appearance, fragrance, and taste of Shenzhen. For a moment, the entire imperial palace was bustling with activity. All the palace maids and guards had changed into brand new clothes. The roadside was decorated with lanterns and streamers. From the sacred palace to the meeting hall that was going to attend the banquet, all of them were covered in snow-white fur. The most beautiful flowers of the Yen clan were placed on both sides of the road. Chief Ji was extremely busy. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and rejoiced in his heart. Fortunately, he was quick-witted and moved the time back a little. Otherwise, he would not have had time to prepare at all. However, why did this Shenzhen suddenly agree to attend the banquet today? He Xinjiu was also very puzzled. Wasn't this crazy lord a shut-in? Why did he agree to go to the banquet? However, it was also good that he went to the banquet. She could take the opportunity to search his study and bedroom. Maybe she could find some clues. Therefore, He Xinjiu said to the guards with her hands behind her back, go in and clean the room. If it's not clean, be careful that the Lord will kill you all. Guard number 1, is there something wrong with this red and green combination? How dare she command them? Guard number 2, is this Hua's brain damaged? What right does she, a palace maid, have to command them? Guard number 3, does this Hua think that she is the Lord's servant just because she took a bath? Seeing that the guards did not move, Yun Chuzhou lowered her voice and said gloomily, if you don't listen to me, I will say that you tried to sneak into the house to watch me take a bath. The guards, you win. You are shameless enough. I've never seen such a shameless person. And she's actually a little girl. What the hell? The guards had no choice but to suppress their anger and clean up the house. He Xinjiu found that the house that she took a shower in previously seemed to be the living room, so she sat down on the chair and took out her notebook to read happily. This fellow had already thought it through. The worst outcome would be to offend that Shenzhen. Since it was already like this, why would he treat her badly? Moreover, as the saying goes, there was no eternal enemy, only eternal interests. That shit Shenzhen had suddenly come to the Dark Continent. He must have some motive, and most likely, there was no progress. If he insisted on making things difficult for her, she would use this as a bargaining point to deal with him. As for whether or not the Lord would negotiate with her, this fellow didn't even consider it. At most, it would just be a war. She had a large kitchen knife in her hand, what was there to be afraid of? Meng Yanshou really wanted to die first. How did it end up with such an ancestor? Not to mention that the large kitchen knife had yet to recover into the Heaven Punisher Divine Axe. Even if he really carried the Heaven Punisher Divine Axe, could he fucking chop that person to death? The Nightmare Beast looked at the other stupid Meng Yanshou in the Spiritual Beast bag. All of them were very relaxed and did not seem to be worried at all. Humph. A bunch of freeloaders. That black-hearted little girl is dead, and you guys can't live either. The Nightmare Beast said angrily. Xiao Hanio glanced at it. Io, you want to pretend to be the boss here? Everything has a first-come, first-served basis. You're just a latecomer, what are you so awesome for? I'm warning you, you're behind the little bastard, you're Shao Qi, get out of my way. Meng Yanshou was so angry that his eyes were red. Well, they were red to begin with, so he pounced fiercely at Xiao Hanyo. A moment later, Meng Yanshou was beaten up by the group until he had nothing left to live for. Damn it! Black-hearted brat, I want to change my host body. I don't want to be a rabbit. Hei Xinjiu ignored these idiots. After reading the script for a while, she felt a little sleepy. She took out a reclining chair and sat on it, falling asleep in a daze. The sky quickly darkened. Manager Ji arrived outside the sacred hall 2 hours in advance and waited anxiously, afraid that the Lord would lose his temper if things didn't go his way. Pan DN0VLCM however, as time passed, there was no movement inside the sacred hall at all. Shengzun's heart immediately sank. Could it be that the Lord had changed his mind and did not want to go to the banquet again? If the Lord really did not go to the banquet, would the Lord think that Shengzun was lying? Shengzun's heart was in a mess. He consoled himself that it was not even 3 minutes past 5. The Lord was a punctual person and would come out in a while. Yes, that must be the case. Inside the temple, Hei Xinjiu finally woke up. When she opened her eyes, she was shocked. She saw a person standing at the door, staring at her. Hei Xinjiu subconsciously looked at herself. Luckily, her clothes were still there. Oh my God, wasn't this Shengzun going to a banquet tonight? Why was he staring at her with his dead fish eyes? Wait a minute, dead fish eyes. Pan DN0VL COM. When Hei Xinjiu looked at Shengzun's eyes again, she found that Shengzun's eyes were a little cold, totally different from Di Baiming's angry eyes. That's right, how could this psycho be a gigolo? She must have been scared silly just now. Shengzun had no choice but to lower his head under the eaves. This guy hurriedly stood up and said in fear and trepidation, Shengzun, I accidentally fell asleep just now. Please forgive me. Shengzun stared at her coldly. Hei Xinjiu's little heart was thumping violently. Was this crazy person going to make a move? Just as Hei Xinjiu was about to speak, she heard a clearly trembling voice coming from outside the door, Lord, I have come to fetch you to the banquet. The one who spoke was Manager Ji. 15 minutes had already passed and there was still no movement inside the sacred hall. He could only take the risk of being slapped away and shout, Shengzun. Shengzun frowned slightly and turned around to leave the room. Hei Xinjiu finally heaved a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to drink some water to calm herself down, she heard Shengzun's voice from outside the door, aren't you going to follow me? Yun Chujiu was stunned. Was he talking about her? When this fellow walked out of the door, he saw that Shengzun had already arrived at the main entrance of the sacred hall. The guards were all looking at her nervously, indicating that she should follow him quickly. Otherwise, the Lord would be furious again. Yun Chujiu thought to herself, since she was going to attend the banquet, and not to throw her life away, she might as well follow him. Perhaps she could even borrow the opportunity to eat some good food. It just so happened that she had not eaten dinner yet. Hence, Shengzun followed behind the Lord and left the sacred hall. Manager Ji, who was kneeling on the ground, almost cried when he saw the Lord coming out. It was not easy. Shengzun was stunned when he saw Yun Chujiu. He had heard that Princess Wang Yu's palace maid, Ru Hua, had been brought into the sacred hall by the Lord. However, didn't they say that the palace maid had a sallow face, 8-shaped eyebrows, red lips, and green lips? Although this palace maid was wearing a green palace maid uniform, although she was not pretty, she was not ugly either. Was she the Ru Hua from before? Although Chief Ji was curious, he didn't dare to ask further and carefully led the way. Yun Chujiu looked at the white fur on the ground and the flowers on both sides of the road and couldn't help but criticize Shengzun in her heart. This lord really has quite a grand presence. Humph. He was struck by lightning for acting cool. Boom. A purple heavenly lightning descended from the sky and struck Hei Shinjo. Hei Shinjo, damn it, blind heavenly lightning, you've struck the wrong target. However, could such a blind heavenly lightning strike her again? It was fine even if it didn't include male. Manager Ji and the others looked at Hei Shinjo with a dumbfounded expression. How could this Hua be completely fine after being struck by the heavenly lightning? That's right, the Lord must have diffused the heavenly lightning for her without batting an eyelid. The Lord was truly unrivaled in his skills. He was indeed worthy of being the lord of their Yen clan, Shengzun. Hence, everyone's gaze towards Shengzun became even more pious and respectful. Yun Chuzhou, what exactly happened? Why did it feel like after she was struck, everyone's reaction was so calm? Could it be that the Yen clan's people were often struck by lightning? Hei Shinjo was walking behind Shengzun, so she could not see Sheng Ziyuan's expression. However, Shengzun did not even stop, which showed that he did not take this thunder seriously. Hei Shinjo comforted herself. She reckoned that this place was really filled with thunder. Otherwise, how could this shitty Shengzun be so calm? Finally, they arrived at the meeting hall. The meeting hall was brightly lit. It was so quiet that one could even hear a pin drop. Emperor Yan, the Empress, a group of nobles, and even Princess Wang Yu and the heavily injured Crown Prince were supported by people to welcome them at the entrance of the meeting hall. When everyone saw the holy senior, they hurriedly bowed. Emperor Yan's old face was full of flattery. Holy senior, I have already asked someone to prepare some food and wine. Please come in. Shengzun said. Cold sweat was dripping down Emperor Yan's forehead. How could he call himself Shengzun in front of the Lord? He was really going to die. The Lord did not pursue the matter further. Instead, he stepped into the meeting hall. Hei Shinjo followed closely behind Emperor Yan and the others using her tiger-like power. Princess Wang Yu, who was supported by someone, glared at Hei Xinjia's back. The regret in her heart was like a torrential river. If she had known this would happen, she would never have let this red and green couple meet the Lord. But now, the Lord had even brought this red and green couple with him to the banquet. Shengzun had really angered her to death. She did not believe that the Lord really liked this red and green couple. Although this red and green couple was not as ugly after removing their makeup, they were not as beautiful as her. She had to let the Lord know today that only her noble Princess Wang Yu was worthy of him. Naturally, the Lord sat on the main seat. Emperor Yan only sat on the right-hand side, while the Empress and Crown Prince sat down according to their status. As for Hei Shinjo, she was only a palace maid, so she could only stand behind Shengzun. This guy looked at Shengzun's neck and thought to himself, I wonder if I have a chance of winning if I use the kitchen knife now. 0. There's no chance of winning at all. Little fairy, don't court death. I haven't married a wife yet. Meng Yanshou wailed loudly in the spiritual beast bag. Yun Chuzhou, she was just thinking about it. Did curly hair need to be so excited? Could it be that this crazy Shengzun had dealt with it before? Curly hair, could it be that you were locked up by this crazy Shengzun before? Hei Shinjo asked tentatively. Meng Yanshou said happily, fortunately, I didn't fall into his hands at that time. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as simple as being locked up. Alright, stop trying to trick me. I won't say anything. In short, just don't provoke him. If you ask me, let's find an opportunity to leave quickly. When he leaves the Dark Continent, well, think of a way. Just as Yun Chuzhou was talking to Meng Yanshou, the banquet had already begun. However, no matter how one looked at the banquet, it felt strange. Everyone lowered their heads silently. No one dared to touch their chopsticks because the Lord had not eaten yet. Who would dare to eat first? Emperor Yen felt that it was not a good idea to do so, so he used his courage to raise his wine cup and said, "Lord, this cup of wine is for you to welcome us. Well, drink it. You can do whatever you want." Emperor Yen almost bit his tongue. What nonsense was he talking about? However, no matter what, it was not so awkward anymore. Emperor Yen took the lead, and everyone also drank the wine in their hands. The Lord was still giving face to Xingzun, so he raised his glass and drank the wine as well. Hei Xinjiu swallowed her saliva. Perhaps she had eaten too many melon seeds while reading the script, so she felt thirsty and swollen. Seeing that the Lord had drunk the wine, Emperor Yen suddenly felt that the tension in his heart had eased a little. "Lord, I don't know what kind of dishes you like, so I've asked the kitchen to prepare some more. Please try some," Emperor Yen said courteously. Yun Chuzhou thought to herself, how is this some? The table in front of the crazy lord was almost 10 feet long. She didn't know why the Yen clan had such a long table. The table was filled with all kinds of food. From cold plates to hot soup, there were more than 10 plates of fruit plates. What a waste! Humph! He was struck by lightning. Boom! An explosion sounded from the roof of the meeting hall. Fortunately, the meeting hall was relatively sturdy. A bolt of lightning did not do much, but Hei Xinjiu felt guilty. This guy quickly lowered his head and did not say a word. Io! Could it be that she had become a jinx like Xiao Hei? However, this skill was good. In the future, if he said that he would be struck by lightning whenever he had nothing to do, wouldn't he not have to worry about not having the power of lightning? Emperor Yen entertained himself by telling a few jokes that were not considered jokes. The Lord did not even move the corner of his mouth. Emperor Yen himself felt very awkward, so he clapped his hands and a beautiful woman began to dance. Hei Xinjiu stared at the delicious food on the table, cursing in her heart, are these people sick? If there is delicious food, why don't they just leave it? Don't they know that it is shameful to waste it? This guy did not eat lunch or dinner. He only ate a fruit and some melon seeds. He was already so hungry that he did not want it anymore. Now that he saw the food, his stomach began to growl and growl. Hei Xinjiu was thick-skinned, but she felt that it was quite embarrassing. She could only silently move backward, hoping that the crazy Xingzun did not hear her. Xingzun held a wine glass in his hand and casually sat on the chair. A few rays of light flashed in his eyes, and the corners of his mouth curled up. Princess Wang Yu, who was sitting below, looked at Xingzun with a face full of infatuation. Although Xingzun was wearing a mask, his bearing was superior to all the men of the nightmare race. This was especially true for Xingzun's lazy sitting posture and the slightly raised corner of his mouth. Princess Wang Yu felt that as long as Xingzun smiled at her, she would be willing to die. Coincidentally, the music stopped. Princess Wang Yu stood up in a flash. With a blush on her face, she said shyly, "Your Excellency, Wang Yu has specially practiced the zither skills. Now, Wang Yu will play a song for you." After Princess Wang Yu finished speaking, she didn't wait for the Lord to speak and quickly left her seat. She asked the palace maids to set up the zither platform and began to play the zither. Princess Wang Yu felt that it might not have been the red and green song that attracted the Lord this afternoon. It might have been her zither that attracted the Lord. Then, when the Lord came out, he mistakenly thought that it was the red and green zither that Xingzun was playing. It must be so. While Princess Wang Yu was playing the zither, she kept stealing glances at the Lord. She felt that her entire heart was melting. Hei Xinjiu had already retreated far away. She quietly took out a meat bun from her storage ring and hid it in her sleeve. Using the sleeve as a cover, she began to eat it. Damn it! I'm starving to death. People are iron rice and steel. I'm so hungry that I can't stop eating. While this guy was enjoying his meal, he heard the Lord say coldly, "Pour the wine for Xingzun." He Xingjiu didn't react in time. This guy was still eating the meat buns without caring about his own safety. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became depressing. Princess Wang Yu, who was playing the zither, couldn't sit still anymore and fell to the ground. In the weird silence, a certain Jiu smacked her lips. Everyone in the meeting hall had their eyes fixed on Xingzunjiu, who was gnawing on a meat bun. Only the Lord, who was sitting on a chair, said coldly, "Pour the wine." Those two simple words sent chills down everyone's spines. It was too terrifying. Everyone was no longer in the mood to look at He Xingjiu, who was gnawing on a meat bun. Their clothes were drenched in cold sweat, and they felt that they would die at any moment. Emperor Yan's voice trembled as he shouted at the palace maids, "Are you all deaf? Hurry up and pour wine for the Lord." The palace maids usually wished that they could be closer to the Lord. However, at this moment, they felt that the Lord was like a sharp sword that was ready to be unsheathed at any moment. Moreover, it was the kind that would see blood the moment it was unsheathed. They really did not want to go up and throw their lives away. However, they couldn't disobey Emperor Yan's orders, so the palace maids looked at each other and could only move forward bit by bit. The Lord's expression became even gloomier. Some of the nobles had already collapsed onto the ground, and the heavily injured crown prince had fainted from fright. Although the palace maids were unwilling, they still moved in front of the Lord, and one of them used his courage to grab the wine jug on the table. Scram! Xingzun's cold voice scared the palace maids so much that they fell to the ground and almost crawled away. Emperor Yan was completely dumbfounded. What did Xing Ziyuan mean by this? Didn't he say to get someone to pour the wine for him? Why was he not happy when the palace maids wanted to pour the wine for him? Could it be that they wanted him to pour the wine? When Emperor Yan thought of this, he gritted his teeth and stood up. "Xingzun, let me pour the wine for you." The Lord glanced at Emperor Yan coldly, and Emperor Yan lost the courage to take a step forward. It was as if his heart had been bawled out by Xingzun. Oh God! If he had known that the Lord was a lunatic, he would not have invited Xingzun to the banquet no matter what. This was not a meal but a torture. Everyone in the meeting hall was trembling and did not dare to breathe loudly. The meeting hall fell into a strange silence once again. Only two people in the meeting hall were unaffected. One was naturally the Lord, and the other was He Xingjiu, who had just finished eating a meat bun and was sipping water. Xingzun was the Lord's Lord, and He Xingjiu was the Lord's Lord. This fellow's skin was unusually thick. Since he had already been discovered, there was no need to hide it. What was wrong with the palace maids? Were the palace maids not human? They should eat, drink, and do whatever they wanted. As for the matter of pouring wine, He Xingjiu really hadn't connected it to herself. There were so many palace maids, why would she be needed? So she hid behind and ate and drank with peace of mind. Yes, the kind that was self-sufficient. Emperor Yan heard He Xingjiu sipping water and suddenly felt blessed. Could it be that the Lord had asked Xingzun to serve wine? He said tentatively, "That. What's her name?" "Yes, she's the one who drank the water." "Why aren't you pouring the wine for the Lord?" He Xingjiu was stunned for a moment. So the lunatic was asking her to pour the wine. This bullshit Lord was really pretentious. If he wanted her to pour the wine, he could have just said so. He only said the word "pour the wine." Who knew who was going to pour the wine for him? Besides, there were so many palace maids. Why did she have to pour the wine? Did she look good? Hei Xinjiu cursed in her heart, but she still obediently went to the side of the Lord and picked up the wine pot on the table to pour a cup of wine for Xingzun. Xingzun picked up the wine cup and drank the wine in one gulp. He said coldly, "Pour the wine." Hei Xinjiu could only pour another cup, and Xingzun drank it in one gulp. The Lord drank one cup after another. Hei Xinjiu could only pour one cup after another as she cursed in her heart. Damn it, this shitty Lord was actually a drunkard. However, this fellow's gaze was quickly attracted to Xingzun's hands. Why were these hands so similar to the hands of a gigolo? This fellow must have lost his mind. He actually stretched out his claws to touch it. In the meeting hall, everyone was stunned. Oh my God, does that red and green couple want to die? They actually openly touched the hand of Xingzun. Does she want to die? It's fine if you want to die, but don't implicate them. After Hei Xinjia's paw touched Xingzun's hand, the cold touch instantly woke her up. Fuck. Has she lost her mind? Why did she touch this crazy person's hand? However, it was not a big deal. Strangers in the future could shake hands with each other. It was not a big deal for her to touch this shitty lord's hand. At most, she would not tell the gigolo. However, this guy thought that since he had already touched the lord's hand, it was a good opportunity to take a look at the lord's right hand. She remembered that there was a horizontal line on D. Biming's right palm. At that time, she even teased him and said that it was a broken palm. The Lord frowned slightly and suddenly pulled his hand out of Hei Xinjia's demonic claw. Then, he snorted coldly, "Flower addict." After saying that, the Lord flicked his sleeve and left the meeting hall with a whoosh. Everyone only saw an afterimage. Hei Xinjiu, flower addict. Fuck. Which eye of his saw her flower addict? She just wanted to see if he was a gigolo. Although there were many suspicious points, she always felt that this lord was very similar to a gigolo. Could it really be her imagination? The meeting hall fell into a strange silence again. Suddenly, Princess Wang Yu got up from the ground and pointed at Yun Chuzhou fiercely, "Men, kill this lowly servant who offended the lord." Yun Chuzhou, fuck. Xingzun. 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 Hei Xinjiu sat down on the lord's seat and said pretentiously, "I'm the lord's subordinate. Who dares to touch me?" No one knew whether it was the lord's name or Hei Xinjia's imposing manner, but none of the imperial guards dared to come forward. Princess Wang Yu was so angry that her eyes were red. "You all don't want to live anymore, do you? Do you all listen to her or to me? I found this Ru Hua from outside. She is not the Lord's person at all. Kill her for me." When the imperial guards heard Princess Wang Yu's words, they immediately surrounded Hei Xinjiu. But Face was also among the imperial guards. After hesitating for a moment, he stood beside Hei Xinjiu and said with a trembling voice, little fairy, what? What should we do?" It was not that Butt-Face was loyal to Yun Chuzhou, but that he had relied on Yun Chuzhia's connections to enter the Nightmare Clan's imperial palace as a guard. If Hei Xinjiu could not heal him, he would not be able to live. He might as well give it his all. Hei Xinjiu took out a chair from her storage ring. She said to Butt-Face, "What do you mean, what should we do? Are you hungry? Let's eat first. I'm warning you. You have to figure out who is more powerful, the Lord or that ugly princess of yours. After all, you only have one life." Butt-Face looked at Hei Xinjiu, who was gnawing on a chicken drumstick, and then at the dumbfounded guards around him. He felt that he must not have woken up. Really, this was all a dream. It was best to wake up immediately from a nightmare. Princess Wang Yu was so angry that she was about to explode. That red and green couple actually called her an ugly freak. All of you kill her. I want to cut her into 1,000 pieces. Princess Wang Yu shouted in exasperation. The imperial guards of the Yan clan's imperial palace did not move when they heard Princess Wang Yu's order. They looked at He Xinjiu, who was feasting on her food, and muttered in their hearts, "This person clearly has nothing to fear. Could she really be a person of the Lord?" That's right. Previously, the Lord had insisted that she pour the wine for Shengzun to drink. Only a ghost would believe it if it was fine. Also, the Lord was such a perverted person. He was actually touched by this red and green duo and did not kill her. What did this mean? It meant that the Lord treated this red and green duo differently. As for Princess Wang Yu wanting to kill them, there was still Emperor Yan up there. Moreover, the law did not punish everyone. Could she really kill all of them? Hence, those imperial guards of the Yan clan's imperial palace were tacitly watching He Xinjiu eating and drinking. Not one of them dared to make a move. When Princess Wang Yu saw that those imperial guards did not listen to her orders, she was so angry that she almost fainted. They had rebelled. These people had rebelled. Just as Princess Wang Yu was about to personally kill Yun Chujiu, Emperor Yan glared at her. "Wang Yu, shut up. Men, send the princess back to Wang Yu Palace and recuperate in Wang Yu Palace for the time being." Princess Wang Yu could not believe her ears. Had her father gone mad? He was actually defending that red and green couple. And, he had even grounded her. Before Princess Wang Yu could fly into a rage, she was forcefully taken away by the maidservant beside the Empress. The Empress was much more sensible than Princess Wang Yu. There was not only one prince in the harem, nor was there only one princess. If she offended Emperor Yan, she might not even be able to hold on to her position as the Empress. The Empress tried to figure out Emperor Yan's intentions. Then, she smiled and said to He Xinjiu, "Miss Ru Hua, I've spoiled Wang Yu so much that he's very impetuous. Don't take it to heart. These dishes are a little cold. Why don't I send someone to serve you some new dishes?" The Empress naturally did not mean to serve He Xinjiu any new dishes. She just wanted to give both parties a way out. Who would have thought that there was someone who really did not know how to be polite? "Alright, then I'll have to trouble the Empress." "Oh right, bring me more meat dishes. I don't like to eat tasteless vegetables," He Xinjiu said as she chewed on the drumstick. The Empress, however, since the words had already left her mouth, she could only order someone to remove the cold dishes on the table and order the imperial kitchen to bring the newly cooked dishes over. He Xinjiu looked at the table full of delicacies and immediately smiled. She said to the dumbfounded crowd, "Don't just stand there. Let's eat together. Also, the dance just now looked pretty good to me. Hurry up and make them dance. It's such a beautiful day. If we let them down like this, we'll be struck by lightning." Boom! An explosion of lightning struck the roof of the meeting hall. Fortunately, the meeting hall was very sturdy and did not suffer any damage. He Xinjiu laughed dryly. Coincidence, it's purely a coincidence. Come, continue eating." Emperor Yan and the rest's attitude towards Yun Chujiu immediately changed. If it was only for the sake of the Lord's face before, now there was a little fear. This red and green pair said that the lightning had attracted heavenly lightning. If they offended her, wouldn't they be struck by lightning? Therefore, even though everyone did not know the taste of food, they still perfunctorily accompanied He Xinjiu to eat and drink. The Lord, who had returned, originally thought that he would see He Xinjiu being beaten up by the crowd. Who would have thought that not only was He Xinjiu fine, she even took over Shengzun's seat and ate and drank, while commenting on the singing and dancing. It was extremely nourishing. Hei Xinjiu was eating and drinking like a tiger, feeling her scalp go numb. She looked up and saw the Lord staring at her at the entrance of the temple. Xingzun was staring at her with a gloomy expression. The other people in the meeting hall also felt the intimidating pressure. Why did this fiend come back? The singing and dancing stopped abruptly, and the meeting hall was suddenly filled with a strange silence. Burp. A loud burp broke the silence. Hei Xinjiu was probably too guilty, and could not help but burp. Hei Xinjiu wondered in her heart, why did this psycho suddenly come back? This guy stood up and said with an embarrassed smile, Xingzun, I thought you were full. Come, the food is still warm, come and eat it quickly. Xingzun gave Hei Xinjiu a cold look, then turned around and left the meeting hall. Hei Xinjiu was dumbfounded. Was he crazy? Could it be that he just wanted to glare at her? Crazy. He was as crazy as the pretty boy. This guy's heart was really big. He said to the crowd, my lord must have lost his way, so he came here. Come, let's continue eating. That dance just now was pretty good. Keep dancing. The crowd looked at Emperor Yan blankly. Emperor Yan waved his hand to indicate that they should follow Yun Chujia's instructions. Emperor Yan's heart was in a mess. He had a bad feeling. This red and green combination seemed to be even more difficult to deal with than the Lord. Where did Wang Yu get such an ancestor from? An hour later, Hei Xinjiu finally had her fill. She staggered out of the meeting hall. Before she left, she didn't forget to take her bag with her. Little fairy, where are we going now? Are we going out of the palace? But Face naturally followed behind Hei Xinjiu. Now, he had nowhere else to go except for Hei Xinjiu. Out of the palace. Let's go, I'll take you to the temple. Hei Xinjiu wasn't stupid. She felt that the Lord was apparently very tolerant of her. At least, he didn't seem to have much killing intent. However, she didn't think that Xingzun would kill her. What was the reason? Yun Chujiu could not figure it out. She felt that Xingzun was very similar to the gigolo. Although there were many differences, she still felt that the two of them were strangely similar. Therefore, he decided to return to the temple and find an opportunity to look at Xingzun's right hand. He could not change his palm print even if he changed it. Little fairy, can't we go somewhere else? But Face's legs went weak when he heard that they were going to the temple. I'm going to the temple anyway, so you can do whatever you want. But Face thought about it and realized that he had nowhere else to go except to follow this troublemaker. If he separated from her, he might lose his life immediately, so he could only follow Hei Xinjiu. When the two arrived at the gate of the temple, they found that the gate was tightly shut. Hei Xinjiu went up and knocked on the door. A triangular-eyed guard opened the door a crack and said gloatingly, Ruhua, the Lord said that you should never come to the temple again. Get as far away as you can. Hei Xinjiu, holy shit. She was kicked out just because she occupied the nest of Xingzun and had a meal. Wasn't this lord a little too narrow-minded? Xingzun thought. This fellow rolled her eyes. The reason why Emperor Yan didn't send anyone to touch her was because he was afraid of the Lord. If she was kicked out of the temple, she might be killed by that little bitch, Princess Wang Yu, in a minute. Therefore, he had to think of a way to get in. This fellow recalled that during the day, it was because he had sung that lullaby that Xingzun had sung. So, this guy repeated the same trick, humming and singing. Hei Xinjiu sang until her throat was smoking. There was no movement in the temple, and the lights were off. It was obvious that the Lord had gone to sleep. Damn it! This was too much of a bully. Forget it. There was nothing that could not be solved with a good night's sleep. He would sleep first. Therefore, This fellow took out a small omnipotent tent and placed it at the entrance of the temple. He said to Butt-Face, "I'm going to rest now. Do as you wish." Butt-Face, didn't he say that he would take him to the temple for a walk? Didn't he say that he would take him to fly with him from now on? Was he going to be a watchdog at the entrance of the temple? Although Butt-Face was dumbfounded, he still sat beside the tent and meditated. No matter what, the entrance of the temple was better than other places. The next day, Butt-Face woke up early. He couldn't fall asleep even if he had something on his mind. He thought that Hei Shinjio would wake up early as well, but the sun was already high up in the sky, and Hei Shinjio was still asleep. Butt-Face thought to himself, this guy's heart is really big. Wasn't she afraid that the Lord would ignore Xingzun from now on? Wasn't she afraid that Emperor Yan would settle the score later? After waiting for a while, Hei Shinjio finally came out of the tent. She stretched her back before she staggered to the entrance of the temple and began to knock on the door. "Lord, it's been a whole night. You should be less angry now, right? I was just using Xingzun as an excuse. Do you have to be so angry?" Yun Chujio shouted a few times, and footsteps came from inside. Hei Shinjio was delighted. She didn't expect that it was the triangular-eyed guard who came out from Sanjiaoyan. The triangular-eyed guard gloated, "Ruhua, the Lord said that you should go where you came from. If you make any more noise outside the temple, the Lord will slap you away. Go wherever you come from." Damn it, she could go wherever she wanted, but unfortunately, she could not go back. Xingzun rolled his eyes, stretched his neck and shouted, "Hey! Lord, I can help you do what you want to do. Let's talk." There was still no movement inside the temple. Hei Shinjio was angry. It seemed that the Lord was determined to drive her away. Fuck, so be it. If I don't stay here, I'll have my own place to stay. This guy turned around and walked a few steps. After thinking for a while, he still could not do it. If she wanted to return to the immortal Yuan continent, she could only hug the Lord's thigh tightly. Forget it, she could just forget about her integrity and face. Therefore, this guy returned to the entrance of the temple and shouted, "Xingzun, I was wrong. I shouldn't have only cared about eating and not pouring wine for you yesterday. I shouldn't have used your name to bully others." There was still no movement inside the temple. Hei Shinjio gritted her teeth. Xingzun shouted, "My lord, I shouldn't have touched your hand secretly. I swear that I have no ill intentions towards you. I have a fiancé." There was still no movement inside the temple. Hei Shinjio pursed her lips. It seemed that there was really nothing she could do. She couldn't beat Xingzun, so she couldn't force her way in, could she? Forget it, I'll think of another way. Let's leave the palace first. Not long after Hei Shinjio walked out with Butt-Face, she was stopped by Princess Wang Yu and a group of guards. "Take down this bitch. Do you really think you're a phoenix? Bah! You ugly freak is simply causing trouble," Princess Wang Yu said viciously. "Scram to the side." Hei Shinjio was fuming in her heart, so she naturally did not have a good expression. Princess Wang Yu gritted her teeth in anger. With a wave of her hand, the guards behind her rushed forward. Hei Shinjio narrowed her eyes. Although her spiritual power was not considered high in the immortal Yuan continent, it was considered pretty good in the Dark Continent. However, she had adjusted her spiritual power to the 6th level of the Ling Xian realm. Did these people still think that she was a pushover? Today, she would show them how powerful little fairy Jill was. Just as Hei Shinjio was about to make a move, the guards flew out like kites with broken strings, and continuous wails could be heard. Hei Shinjio was stunned. "Io, is she so powerful now? She could kill people with her mind alone. Just as she was enjoying herself, she heard a cold voice behind her, "Get in here. Get your ass in here." Hei Xinjiu was dazed for a moment before she realized that it was the voice of the crazy Lord Xingzun. Did he agree to let her enter the temple? Did he slap those guards away? Hei Xinjiu suddenly felt more confident. She pointed at Princess Wang Yu and said, "Bah! How dare you say that I'm ugly? Let me tell you, you are the ugliest person in the entire palace, no, in the entire Nightmare Clan. Not only are you ugly, you are also stupid. If I were you, I would just find a piece of tofu and kill myself." After Hei Xinjiu finished speaking, she ran towards the temple. What a joke! If she didn't run, would she be waiting to be beaten up? Buttface wanted to cry but had no tears as he followed behind her. In terms of the ability to cause trouble and gain hatred points, no one in the Dark Continent could compare to this person. This person was seeking death by playing tricks. She did not think that the Lord would leave the Dark Continent sooner or later. Wouldn't the royal family still have the final say then? Could it be that she still had the delusion that the Lord could bring her out of the Dark Continent? When Hei Xinjiu ran to the entrance of the temple, a guard opened the temple door eagerly. Yun Chujiu quickly brought Buttface into the temple. After Yun Chujiu entered the temple, she immediately saw the triangular-eyed guard who was trying his best to reduce his presence in Sanjiaoyan. Hei Xinjiu walked to his side with a sinister smile. "You were quite happy to see me make a fool of myself just now, weren't you?" "No, no, Miss Ru Hua, no, Aunt Ru Hua, please spare me. I was wrong," the triangular-eyed guard said in a humble voice. He felt as if his heart was going to explode. He did not expect the Lord to change his mind and take in this red and green couple. If he had known earlier, he would not have offended this red and green couple. "If you leave the temple now, I will spare your life. Otherwise, I will kill you." Hei Xinjiu was never someone who would be at a disadvantage. Moreover, if she did not chase someone out, how could she let Buttface take over? The triangle-eyed man looked at the guard's little leader for help. The little leader looked as if he was blind. He did not even look at him. Instead, he looked up at the sky. "Io, the weather today was just right. The clouds in the sky were really white." San Jiaoyan looked at the sword in Hei Xinjia's hand and left the temple dejectedly. Hei Xinjiu pursed her lips and said to the leader, "Buttface is my man. He will replace San Jiaoyan in the future. You all better be sensible. I will kill whoever offends me." San Jiaoyan and the others nodded. They were actually quite confused. Where did this red and green couple get their confidence from? Didn't she think that she was too arrogant? Didn't she think that her position was too high? Wasn't she just a palace maid? What right did she have to be so arrogant? What right did she have to be so shameless? Buttface stood behind Hei Xinjiu with a complicated look on his face. Although he was seeking death by playing tricks, he had to admit that it felt really good to act cool. After Hei Xinjiu acted cool, she sneaked to the door of Shengzun's study and hesitated whether she should go in or not. This guy rolled his eyes and shouted into the room, "Shengzun, if there's nothing else, I'll go back to my own room to rest." The guards of the sacred palace cursed in their hearts. Shameless. Which room in the sacred palace is yours? Hei Xinjiu also realized this problem. Which room was hers? Before Shengzun could figure it out, he heard the Lord's gloomy voice from the study room, "Get in here. Get out of my face." This crazy Lord doesn't seem to know how to speak human language. Hei Xinjiu grumbled a little before obediently entering the Shengzun study. In the study, the Shengzun held a sheepskin scroll in his hand and was flipping through it. He Xingjiu glanced at it and saw that there were 5 words written in the ancient language of the Yen clan, Fallen God Abyss. This fellow's heart skipped a beat. Fallen God Abyss? As the name implied, wasn't that the place where the gods died? If this Xingzun was reading such a book, it meant that he must be a demon. So it was an old demon. He must have some evil idea to be so tolerant of her. Could it be that he knew that she had the Heaven Punisher axe, so he didn't fall out with her? That was not right. She had never revealed her cleaver, and she had taken a disguise pill. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have recognized her. What was he trying to do? Just when He Xingjiu was puzzled, the Lord placed the sheepskin scroll on the desk and stared at He Xingjiu gloomily. Are you a human? Do you want me to take you out of the Dark Continent? Yun Chujia's heart sank. Since he had already asked, it meant that he had already confirmed it. There was no point in refuting her. She might as well play along. Therefore, He Xingjiu said with a smile, Xingzun is indeed Xingzun. That's right, I'm a human. I want to return to the immortal Yuan continent. I wonder if Xingzun can help me. Xingzun curled his lips and remained silent. He just tapped the desk with his fingers, which sounded like he was tapping on He Xingjia's heart. He Xingjia's heart was in a mess. She looked at Xingzun warily and told Xiao Hanio in her heart that if Xingzun made trouble, she must curse him immediately so that she could escape. Finally, Xingzun stopped tapping the desk and said with a faint smile, "It's not impossible to take you to the immortal Yuan continent, but you have to tell me how you came to the Dark Continent." He Xingjiu rolled her eyes. Although the entrance of the miasma area was not important, how could she explain that she was not afraid of the miasma? Therefore, the guy said, when we humans were fighting against the Yen clan in the immortal Yuan continent, I was captured. Those people of the Yen clan sacrificed me to their holy beast. The holy beast looked very fierce, and it had 4 vertical pupils that looked like snakes. I was going to die, but I didn't expect to be in the Dark Continent when I woke up. I don't know what exactly happened. Meng Yanshou, who did it offend? Why was the blame placed on its head? She was the one who insisted on barging into the poisonous miasma area, all right? She was the one who risked her life to block the exit of the nightmare air, all right? Shameless. The Lord chuckled after hearing Yun Chujia's words. He Xingjiu could hear the disdain and ridicule in her voice. The little flame in her heart rose up quickly, but this guy was cowardly and did not dare to make a sound. Xingzun did not dare to say anything. Stop playing tricks in front of me. You came from the Yen clan's poisonous miasma area, didn't you? Xingzun said coldly. Yun Chujia's heart skipped a beat, however, she had a blank expression on her face. Poisonous miasma area? Maybe. Maybe the Yen clan's holy beast threw me into the poisonous miasma area. I'm really lucky. If I didn't fall into the Dark Continent, I would have been poisoned to death by the poisonous miasma. Xing Ziyuan's expression became even more mocking. It's okay if you don't tell the truth. You can follow me, and I will bring you back to the immortal Yuan continent. However, you must listen to my arrangements unconditionally. If you don't listen to my arrangements, then we will not interfere with each other. Yun Chujiu immediately promised, Xingzun, don't worry. I will definitely listen to your arrangements. So, what should I do now? Xingzun glanced at her with a look of disdain, stay as far away from me as possible. He Xingjiu, in that case, I will get as far away as possible. You are busy. After saying this, He Xingjiu left the study room and gently closed the door. This guy gritted his teeth. What the fuck, did he think that she was willing to stay with him? If it was not for the sake of returning to the immortal Yuan continent, she would not have bothered with him. Pooey. Shameless. Hei Shinjo walked out of the study room and looked around. The sacred hall was very big and there were plenty of rooms. This guy selected a room and finally chose a room that was close to the Lord's bedroom. The reason why this guy chose this room was because, firstly, this room was indeed the best. Secondly, this guy had little Giorgio in his heart and was closer to that psycho. If there was any movement, she would be the first to know. When the guards saw that Hei Shinjo had chosen a room openly, they had a sudden realization. It seemed that the Lord had really taken a liking to the red and green combination. Could it be that the Lord did not have good eyesight? Hei Shinjo used her power to command the guards to clean the room, then, she pointed at the guards' leader and said, "Go and find that Shingzun. Tell him that the Lord's meals will be delivered according to the standards of yesterday's banquet. Oh right, tell him to prepare double portions." Although the head of the guards thought that Hei Shinjo was a little shameless to ask for double portions, he did not know how luxurious the banquet of the Lord was yesterday, so he eagerly went to find General Manager Ji. After listening to the words of the head of the guards, General Manager Ji's face broke down. According to the standard of yesterday's banquet? Was this Ru Hua trying to raise the Lord like a pig? However, he did not dare to make the decision and quickly reported the matter to Emperor Yen. Emperor Yen glared at him. Regardless of whether it's that Ru Hua or the Lord's order, just follow it. It's just some food. If you anger the Lord, the consequences will be unimaginable. Hence, ever since Hei Shinjo moved in, the standard of food in the sacred hall had undergone a qualitative leap. This fellow was not stingy. He often rewarded the good dishes to the guards. Well, the portion was given to the Lord, and this fellow saved his portion. For a few days, nothing happened. Shengzun stayed in the study room except for his bedroom. He did not cause any trouble for Hei Shinjo. The more Hei Shinjo thought about it, the more suspicious Shengzun became. Therefore, she sat in her room and let out the nightmare beast. Curly hair, I think that Shengzun looks like someone I know. Have you seen Shengzun's face before? Ha, ha. I'm dying of laughter. I'm dying of laughter. Do you know that Sha Xing? Forget it. Meng Yanshou laughed so hard that he rolled on the ground. Yun Chujio was so angry that she kicked the nightmare beast to the wall. For the 10,000th time, the nightmare beast despised its host body. It was fucking weak. Little fairy, can you not be so unreasonable? Can you not be so unreasonable? Didn't I just laugh a few times? Do you have to treat me like this? After all, I am an ancient ferocious beast. I have no face at all. Besides, what's wrong with me laughing? How can you know that fiend? If you know that fiend, I'll choose a pig next time I choose a host body. Meng Yanshou said angrily. Hei Shinjo frowned. Although there are many things that are out of place, I just feel that they are very similar. I'll definitely find an opportunity to verify it again. Meng Yanshou obviously remembered to eat and not to hit that group. He leaned over and asked, by the way, little fairy, who is the person you know? What's his relationship with you? He is my fiancé. He also ascended from the Tian Yuan continent. Because Meng Yanshou was half a soul, therefore, Yun Chujio did not establish a contractual relationship with Meng Yanshou. Therefore, Yun Chujio was still somewhat wary of Meng Yanshou, so she naturally would not tell it everything. Ascended from the Tian Yuan continent? That is even more impossible. That person has lived for a long time. However, little fairy, if that person is really, if that person is really your fiancé, what would you do? You have to know that that person's identity is not simple. Meng Yanshou asked curiously. Yun Chujiu smiled. What's there to do? I love that person, not his identity. Not to mention that he's some saint, even if he's an old devil, I still love him. I don't care about the righteous path or the evil path. I don't care who I want to love. If he is a god, I will accompany him to save all living things. If he is a devil, I will accompany him to turn the tables. Of course, I will not do anything that harms the heavens. I am a very kind person, you know that. Meng Yanshou, although it felt that the last sentence was hypocritical, it had to admit that the little girl's previous words still shocked it. There was such a casual woman in the world. Ignoring the other party's status, only loving him. Woo, as an Ashes-level single beast, it really wanted to have such a wife. Curly hair, you haven't told me yet. Have you seen the face of the Lord? He Xinjiu urged Xingzun. Meng Yanshou shook its head like a rattledrum. I haven't seen him. Not only have I not seen him, few people have. Well, can you stop asking about him? I'm hungry. Give me a few more pieces of that whatever it is cake. It's the most delicious cake I've ever eaten. Get lost. You foodie. The conversation between the man and the beast was clearly heard by Xingzun through his spiritual sense. Xingzun was stunned for a long time. Then, he slowly curled his lips and withdrew his spiritual sense. The next morning, before He Xinjiu woke up, she heard Xingzun's cold voice from outside, if you don't come out in 15 minutes, I'll leave on my own. After hearing Xingzun's words, He Xinjiu jumped up from the bed in fear, I'll be right there. I'll be right there. Xingzun cursed in his heart, this lunatic. Why didn't he tell her at dinner yesterday? He must have done it on purpose. He Xinjiu ran out of the house. Xingzun, where are we going? Are we coming back? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.